OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
7:30 Friday morning. A very good morning to you, wherever it is you are at on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us, and we have a stack show coming your way. Tell you about that in a few moments' time. First of all, Owen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
How are you getting on?
Very well.
You're a bit quieter around the office this morning. Are you a bit nerves kick in yet, or is it like...
Yeah, well, not nerves, just pure terror.
Anticipation. Terror?
Yeah.
Right, really?
Of course it is, yeah.
And what's the terror relative to losing?
Just another weekend of potential fear. Terror of Monday morning fear.
Genuinely, is it a fear? Like, is it at this stage of the year? Obviously, your thing is to get to All Ireland final day and then roll the dice and see how you go. But at the minute, given what's happened, particularly last year, that it's like, geez, we might not even get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you'd be doing well to get out of this weekend. All that sort of stuff.
I'm
not sure. You haven't even mentioned it. You're talking about the All Ireland football quarterfinals this weekend and Kerry against Mayo is what you're speaking about. Yeah. I mean, I think maybe everybody who's involved this weekend, any of the fans going this weekend, they'll probably be nervous before their team plays. Do you get nervous before Westmeath play?
Not really. I get more nervous during the game, but that's more to do with the fact that, like, you know, the Offaly game the other week is
you wouldn't have got nervous about that.
A total outlier. Not too bad, yeah. Just given that Offaly were down a few players and stuff, but I'll be nervous around the Cavan game for sure. But anyway, you're deflecting here away from you're burying the lead here for us on.
Which is what?
Which is about Kerry this weekend and your sense of apprehension about it. Is that based on? Are you just like that anyway, no matter who they're playing, or is it based on the fact that it's Mayo and who the hell knows?
No, I wasn't apprehensive before the games against Limerick or Cork, but to be more apprehensive against Mayo because they're a better team. And Kerry got dumped out at the knockout stage the last couple of times they played, so yeah, that'd be the apprehension. I was looking at Tomás O'Shea was doing a bit of a Q&A last night, and a few interesting responses, but one of the things, I think somebody had asked him about Clifford, I can't remember the exact question, but he was saying that it feels like the players and everybody in and around the squad are a bit more tight-lipped, that there's not as much news coming out, not as much injury stuff. Well, the rumour mill has been an absolute overdrive all week.
Yeah, about Clifford.
But it's about everything. There's all sorts of rumours. Take your pick of any sort of potential rumour you could think about any GAA team.
So tempted.
It's been there. There. What's that?
I'm so tempted to just start firing a load of stuff at you.
Yeah, there's been rumours about everything, so I presume a lot of it is all nonsense. So I didn't see that part of the Q&A, so a bit of it there. But is
that the general sense down there that it's hard to get information?
I don't know. Like, I have no idea where. I've no idea where the little message that says forwarded that comes into my WhatsApp group is actually coming from. I've no idea if those are coming from the camp or if they're coming from people who have set up random pseudonyms on hoganstand.com, or if it's a Kerry GAA forum or whatever. I don't know where any of this information comes from, so it's good to hear that somebody who's much better placed to tell you that information reckons that it's not coming from the camp.
Any of the forwarded messages you can tell us what's going on that would aren't going
to... It's just all like random stuff like Clifford's in, Clifford's out for the season, Clifford's got a dead leg, Clifford might play. Like, I don't think Jack O'Connor's interview this week did shed any sort of light. I really, really appreciated the optimism from Radio Kerry at the time and tweeting it, being like, good news for Kerry. And when I looked at the clip, I was like...
Do you know, one of the first thoughts that I had was looking at it was that, like, Jack O'Connor's a very smart man. He's been in management for a very long time. He understands understands the relationship with the media. The idea that he would be nervous when he gets unprepared or nervous when he gets asked a question like that, to me seems unusual almost.
He wasn't unprepared for that question.
Well, exactly. And maybe the response, the tugging at the shirt, the bit of a rub of the chin, the slight shiftiness, me reacting like this could cause a bit of a distraction here, which might not be the worst thing for us.
Yeah.
I'm
not sure about a distraction. I just think that he doesn't want to reveal the hand. I don't think Kerry need to create some sort of smoke screen. But yeah, like I think he just doesn't want to tell people whether or not Clifford's going to be available this weekend. There's a rumour in there, and he's like, let that exist away. I mean, I'm not going to clarify one bit because it'll maybe assist Mayo's preparations if they know that Clifford's going to be there, because after what happened last time, they'll probably have to have a significant amount of their prep done on Clifford. So I can absolutely see why he would want that that cloud to continue to hang over them, because it makes absolutely no difference to their setup, I would suggest.
If we go with form, so doing away with the sort of, I don't know if you saw Joe and Nathan on the news round last night, but geez, between the two of them all, they were absolutely riling each other up to the point that I think they were both convinced at the end of the conversation that Mayo were going to win this weekend.
Right, okay.
Which, based on form, is ludicrous. Based on form, it really shouldn't matter even whether Clifford is either fully fit or even starts the game.
But based on Mayo's form?
Yeah.
I guess the counter argument to that is that there just isn't any Mayo or any Kerry form to speak of. That's kind of the thing. It's like you've got average form against no form. So that's the issue here, and I think that's what is probably giving people a bit of hope, and also the fact it's just the massive body of evidence that is in front of us that Mayo have been able to turn it on when they've needed to. And yes, part of that is a different era. It's like the 2016-2017 team, but also I think last year they kind of felt like they turned it on when they need to. I think their performance in the second half of Dublin alone was way better than their first half performance. Even within a game, they turned it on last year, let alone between two weekends. So I think that's why people. This isn't some sort of like intangible worry that people would have about Mayo kind of showing up and giving a big performance today. There's like actual information that we've had in the not too distant past that would suggest that they're well capable of doing that.
I thought Kerry were going to win it last year, and I probably wouldn't have been alone in that. And obviously Tyrone came out from the pack, and I mean, there's a few contenders for that particular title this year. That certainly on the Derry side, it looks as if the path is open, maybe for themselves or maybe for Armagh, to get to an Ireland final. And who knows when you get that far. Was the disappointment? Was there a big disappointment about last year? I mean, in hindsight, when you look at losing by, what was in the end? Was it a point after extra time, whatever it was, to Tyrone?
Point after extra time, yeah.
When you consider what they went on to do, is it tempered a bit by the fact that Tyrone were actually a very good team, and was the disappointment tempered in some way or that, or is there just huge disappointment and a sense of, geez, we got to get to put this right now?
I'm not quite like. I don't think there was any tempering of anything. That was an unbelievably disappointing campaign for Kerry last year, wasn't it? Like, I mean, they were heavy favourites. Dublin had been knocked out.
Yeah,
they were heavier favourites as a result of that. I think that last year was an easier All Ireland to win than this year would be if they were to go all the way. Like, so that was not that it was an open door by any stretch of the imagination, but that Tyrone team had suffered COVID. Their preparations were hampered a little bit, and Kerry didn't perform as much as they would have liked on the day. So when you underperform, it's like a hugely disappointing thing. At least if you kind of lose a classic where you absolutely show up to 100%, I guess it maybe makes things a little bit easier. But no, in isolation, that was a terrible conclusion to last season. Whoever comes through on the side of the draw, that side of the draw now is going to be seen as the you're going to be crowned champions here ultimately at the end of the year. Which is a dangerous place to be, I mean, given what happened last year, because it was a bit of the same stuff, wasn't there? When Mayo beat Dublin, it was like, it's theirs to win now, and surely they got to go and grasp the thing, and obviously it fell us under at the end, but like, that is the power side of the draw. Yeah, and I think on the other side, what's really interesting is that when that other side of the draw gets to the final, you'll have a team that have won back-to-back games in Croke Park, and I think that maybe that's just something that we're kind of using to criticise all those four teams at the moment, is, just the getting used to Croke Park, winning in Croke Park multiple times in a season. Whoever gets to that final will have done it multiple times in a season, and I think that weakness will have been taken away, especially with a team like Derry. If they manage to find themselves in an All-Ireland final, I think they're probably the most dangerous on that side of the draw. I'm not saying they're the best team on that side of the draw necessarily, but they're the most dangerous in the final, because they'll have proven to everybody, including themselves, they can win in Croke Park, and that game plan can win in Croke Park. By the same token, though, I'm not sure if it will, so they could potentially be vulnerable this weekend to a bit of an upset. Significant upset, I would say, Derry, I think. But
really,
I'm not saying I'm predicting Derry are going to win, but I think they're vulnerable to potentially losing this weekend. I'm not like Clare are a very good side as well. So, but I think that if Derry win this weekend, and if they got over a Galway or Armagh in a semi-final, I think that's unbelievable preparation for a final. So I don't actually think that it would be a situation where whoever comes through in that strong side of the draw would be considered. It would be considered a tap-in whatsoever, especially if Derry's gets to the final on the other side. Kerry will win this weekend, won't they? Well, how much do you think? Just like, look at you really don't know what Mayo. It could be 7 or 8 points. I mean, it might also be tight, given that You're ruling out the Mayo winning possibility, are you? I wouldn't be going for Mayo, no. Am I ruling out that? Look at.
It is Mayo. They're the most ludicrous team of all time in some ways, in that it's really hard to predict what's going to happen, and I don't want to be sort of forcing myself into Nathan versus Joe here. But on form, if you go with evidence of what we've seen over the last while, then I think it's got to be Kerry.
What the evidence of 80 days ago?
Yeah, I know, and you look at Galway and the period of time that they have between games as well. You're punished nearly for winning the provincial final, but yeah, it's Kerry, isn't it?
I mean, like you've roundabout suggested why you can't come to the conclusion that Kerry are absolute bankers this weekend, and then said, "Oh, it's Kerry, isn't it?"
If I was putting a fiver down, I'd be going with Kerry.
It should be, but like that's as far as you can go. I think saying it should be like they are favourites, and favourites should win every game that they're favoured for. But we all know that rarely happens, and there will be an underdog that wins this weekend.
I'll settle for it should be. That's as good as it's going to get, I think, on this morning. We'll take it, see what happens. Are you down there on Sunday?
I'll be at Croke Park on Sunday, yeah.
It's sold out, is it?
It's not. No, it won't be a sellout, I don't think, because it's just below 80,000 potentially.
7:41 Friday morning, you're watching OTB AM, and we're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. And I mentioned we've got a stacked Friday show for you again this morning, and that's exactly the case, and as has been the case for the last number of weeks. Delighted to say Karen Duggan will join us in the line in a couple of moments' time to look ahead to the Republic of Ireland against Georgia in Tbilisi on Monday. We're going to talk to Karl McKaigue. He's the Derry defender, but not injured for most of the year. A hip injury. We'll check up with him on that and get his preview, obviously, ahead of the games, and particularly with the Derry slant this weekend. Will is going to join us for the quick picks. We have a leaderboard as well, I'm reliably informed, which I'm not sure is great news, but we do have a leaderboard, a bit of a stock take as to who's leading the way, and get into the picks for this weekend as well. Let you know what's happening on the back pages at 20 to 9 this morning. David Gough, GAA referee, has been chatting to us yesterday and covers a range of topics. We'll get into that at 10 to 9 this morning, and then a live crappy quiz where it's going to be Nathan versus Mick versus myself. I can't guarantee any quality, but there'll be loads of shouting. You're almost assured of it. And then at 9:30, Keith Wood, who was on the show during the week, will bring us the rugby slot to see out the show this morning. So that's what's going on, and do keep the comments coming into us over the course of the morning. Now, I mentioned Karen Duggan is going to join us next to preview the Republic of Ireland's game against Georgia on Monday. Before that, Irish international Diane Caldwell speaking ahead of that World Cup qualifier.
Was just so proud to watch the girls perform like that, and I think the team really showed what we're capable of. Terrific result against a team that obviously have now qualified for the World Cup automatically, number 2 in the world. So yeah, we showed as a team what we're capable of, but I think generally as a team we know we've another level to reach as well.
Can I ask you a little bit about the competition in the squad, Diane, particularly in defence? Like, you know, not just you, but a few of you have kind of been in and out of the starting team. You know, it's obviously a big challenge. Like, does that just lift everything around you as well? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I think generally the Irish team have always had a really good defensive line. Like, we've always had a lot of competition for places since I can remember being here. And of course, that's what makes us so strong, is that competition. And you need that all across the pitch, not just in defensive areas, but all over. And I think we're getting to that stage now where there is a really good, healthy competition, and every team needs that. We need that to get to the next level.
That is Diane Caldwell from her press conference in Georgia during the week. Karen Duggan, former Ireland international, former Player of the Year at international and Women's National League level as well. Karen, good morning to you.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Good.
So Ireland against Georgia in Tbilisi on Monday. It's the only qualifier of the window, and then after that we'll have Finland and Slovakia to come. Georgia played 6, scored none, conceded 41. It's I'm assuming there's no debate about the outcome here.
No, there's absolutely not, and we can take warning signs from the men and talk about how hot the weather will be and all that, but there would be no excuse for anything other than a comprehensive win, and I don't see it really going any other way. I think they have a pretty fit squad. There's no threats to talk about from Georgia, so it should be a banker of 3 points, and just another 3 points on the board going into that more crucial window that you mentioned, Finland and Slovakia one.
The hot weather was one thing. One of the other excuses that we used for many of the men's teams over the international break, England as well as Ireland, was that sort of end of season sort of come down and, you know, trying to get yourself back up for an international window. That's not a danger at all, Karen, is it?
No, I really don't think it is, especially considering the high ebb they would have been on after the Sweden game. You would have thought that the girls would have been really looking forward to getting back into camp together, because they know that they're kind of building on something special now. They had a nice, easy, friendly as well during the week. They got to rest players, got to try out new things. I think the purpose of this camp, as well as it being a warm weather camp, is more so building towards the Finland and the Slovakia game and just getting contact with the players. I think Vera will be delighted getting that extra week that she got. Not many other international have gotten that, so it's really, really good from her perspective. The girls might think otherwise because they got one less week of a break, a lot of the girls, particularly the English girls, but I don't really see any issues with it. I think that, like I said, the Slovakia game is the big one for me because they need to get used to getting good with playing with the ball and having a bit more possession. I think we struggled with them doing that the last time, and I think again the Georgia game is just another opportunity to kind of bed down patterns of play and get more comfortable and more confident on the ball, and they should have 90% possession in order to practice, I would think.
Yeah, and it's a carryover game, obviously, from one that was cancelled earlier in the year, which is the context to it. What do you think? Like, there's been so much conversation, obviously, about Vera Pauw's tactics and maybe at times the conservative nature of them. Given what we've just been talking about and the layoff for the England-based players, particularly, do they just go for it from the off, Vera, given the Karen, given the quality of opposition that this team are facing?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to approach it. I really don't see any point in, she'll keep with the same shape. I'm sure she'll still play what she'll call a 3-5-2. It seems to be more of a 5, oftentimes when we're playing against the better teams. But it'll be deployed higher up the pitch. I would like to see, the only changes I would like to see is get more girls on the pitch. I think that once they establish their lead, I'd like her to make use of her subs earlier on. I think that we've been fairly lucky in terms of injuries, apart from maybe Savannah McCarthy and Megan Campbell, but it's always a risk, and you have to have a full squad in order to qualify for these major tournaments. You have to have someone who could possibly come on and change the game. Whereas when we've been substituting our striker, it's because we've had Heather Payne being run into the ground because she's had to cover 13, 14 kilometres chasing balls. So we want to see possibly what other people could offer up front in case there is a point against Slovakia that we do need to change things up. I'd like to see her use this as the opportunity to get more minutes into certain girls' legs, particularly being the top half of the pitch, because I think defensively you don't want to change that too much. There's been a lot of talk about changing the keeper, but I think since Courtney Brosnan has solidified that place, that the girls in front of her have looked more solid as well. So I don't think the girls at the back will be tested, so I don't think there's any point in changing those. I think I'd like to see a bit more variety up front, though.
What's your gut feeling on what Pauw will opt for, assuming everybody's fit for September in attack?
I think it's hard to say. I'd still like to see Katie in the more advanced position as opposed to that left wing back position, but I don't really see it happening. I think that she'll stick with Heather Payne and Lucy Quinn kind of as the more advanced players, Lucy maybe being more on the wing. I don't really see her changing too much because that would leave her open to us chatting about her a bit more. I think it's kind of a what's not broken, don't fix kind of a job at the moment, particularly considering we managed to score against Sweden, which no one would have predicted.
So is there a door ajar at all this window for somebody to stake a claim for one of those positions, or are you pretty certain that's how it's going to be in September?
I'm pretty certain that's how it's going to be. I don't think too many people have been afforded a huge amount of opportunity. I'd like to see the likes of Leanne Kiernan getting more game time when she's fit, just because of how she was with Liverpool this year. She's been sticking balls in the back of the net. I'd like to see us have a creative player in midfield like Risha Littlejohn, because I think Denise's main strength is box to box. I know she had a cracker for NC Courage during the week, and it was all over Twitter, and it was great to see. But her strength is she started that attack from a deep line position. I think that's her strength, box to box. I think having another attacking midfielder in there with her actually frees her up to get the best out of her and do her role best. Where she's not being relied on to do everything up top, because I don't think that's her game. I think she's an out-and-out 8 and she's so good at it. She's world class at it. So I'd like to see Megan Connolly sitting that 6, Denise being the 8, and then potentially someone like Risha in the 10 there, or Katie. That's where I'd like to see her, where they can actually affect the game and put pressure on Slovakia. We can't afford to sit back against Slovakia because they actually do. They have enough quality to like potentially threaten us. We know Finland do. So I'd like to see us be on the front foot against them. I think that was the difference against Finland. We saw from the first couple of minutes, Katie and Denise were pressing high, and then inevitably we started to drop back. But if we can get more comfortable with that, and I think the players to do that are having Katie higher up, having the like Marusha, people who are just more comfortable in those positions as opposed to two deep line midfielders.
You haven't mentioned Lily Agg, and she had impressed in her debut obviously during the week, albeit just a friendly game. Is there room for her in that setup, or where do you see her immediate future, Karen?
Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't seen much of her play. She wouldn't have been in the top division last year, so I wouldn't have gotten to see her through the WSL. But to come in, it doesn't really matter the opposition. To come in on your first international and make the impact that she did, she's surely staked a claim for a place in that centre mid position, particularly if we are saying that we're going to allow a bit more freedom to the centre midfielders, because Megan Connolly can do that number 6 role by herself, particularly when we've got 3 centre backs and 3 out and centre backs behind her in Niamh Fahey, Louise Quinn and Diane Caldwell. So I definitely think she's staked a claim. I haven't stuff. I'll talk to girls to see what it's looking like. I think possibly she'll get a run this week, given how she's been talked about after the Philippines game. But when it comes to Slovakia and to the Finland game, I think it will revert back and probably be someone like Jamie Finn, just to kind of shore up that midfield and people that we're just used to seeing in those positions.
Because a couple of creative players in those positions is almost a bit of a luxury against the better teams. Yeah,
it is. Well, that's the Irish way, we like to shore up the houses first and then maybe hitting the break or look at set pieces. And you could sit here and criticize it, and we'd all love to see us playing big, expansive football and being on the front foot the whole time. But after we beat Georgia, which we assume we will, when you're essentially 2 games away from the first playoff in I don't know how many years, and you're potentially qualifying for your first ever World Cup, I understand the little bit of reservation and opening yourself up at this stage of the qualifying campaign. If we were to have done it at the very beginning of the campaign and said that this is our style of play, you'd have said, okay, Vera's trying something new. We understand that she's building for the Euros. But now that there's the glimmer of hope that we will qualify for the World Cup, I wouldn't blame Vera for that more conservative approach.
Yeah, it'll all in hindsight look, that all made sense. That's totally fine, and maybe we tweak it up for the next campaign. But on this one, before we leave it, Finland, Slovakia and Ireland obviously fighting it out for that second place in and that playoff spot. Finland coming to Dublin in September, and then they have Sweden at home. After that, we'll be hoping for a favour obviously from the Swedes, and then Slovakia will be in Tbilisi, where you assume to get the job done, and then they'll host us on the final day. With all that in the mixer, Karen, and the performances and the results that you've seen in the group so far, if you were being totally dispassionate about it, are Ireland favourites to take that second position?
They are. They are, because Slovakia did us a massive favour by taking points off Finland. I think that Finland were shell-shocked when we went there and got a result. I think they will be out for blood against us, but I think that that's a game where, again, we'll set up like we did against Sweden. We will look to not lose that game, and I think we're very good at doing that. I think that with the players we have, we're well set up to do that. So then I think it's about just going and beating Slovakia, and that's my only little worry. That's a game where we will have a little bit more possession, and we underestimated them a little bit when they came to Tala. I thought that they were very impressive on the ball. They were technically better than I expected them to be, and we were lucky to get away with a point in that one. So I think it'll go both ways. I think Finland will be out for blood, but it'll kind of suit us because we'll sit back, we'll soak up the pressure, and we should be able to hit them on the break. And then conversely against Slovakia, I think that we should have a point to prove, because the girls did come in for a bit of criticism after that game. We didn't expect not to take all 3 points at home to them. So I really think that it is in our hands. And I think that the cards are second in our favour at the moment. I know you asked for an unbiased opinion, but I'm not really able to give one. I'm really very hopeful.
You have often spoken, and you have already, about Katie McCabe and your wish to see her playing a bit further up the pitch, particularly against maybe some of the weaker teams. Fergus Keogh was in touch this morning and he asks, does McCabe not play left back for Arsenal? Leave people play in their club positions, he says.
She's been deployed at left back. She's been deployed at left wing. They've been quite fluid there. She's been higher up the pitch when she's come on later in the season. We don't have the players to afford to play players in positions like that. That's the same with the men's team. You have to chop and change. We have a world-class player in Katie McCabe. We need her in addition where we can get her on the ball, where she can affect the game most. If we want to sit back and defend, yes, we can play her in that left back position and she'll help soak up the pressure and she'll play in tackles and she'll play that wholehearted kind of left back position that we see for her club. But when she's given freedom to move in the field and affect play and link up with the strikers, she tends to score. And that's something as an Irish team we don't have a lot of. So yeah, you can argue that people should play in their club positions, but that's well and good when you've got a wealth of talent and a pool that's world class and everyone's playing it at the same level as Katie McCabe, but they're simply not. She's a cut above herself, and probably Denise at this point are a cut above the rest. So I understand the argument, but I'd have to disagree.
Yeah. And anybody who's been paying any attention to anything you've said over the last couple of years would not be a bit surprised by that. Karen, we look forward to the game on Monday. We'll catch up with you again next week. Thanks a million.
Thanks a million.
Thanks a lot, Karen Duggan on the line there, looking ahead to the Georgia game on Monday. You are watching OTB AM, brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A few comments come into us on the back of our chat off the top of the show. Owen Brian Kennedy wondering if the talk of Mayo's poor form is doing a disservice to Kildare and Monaghan. It's not like they've been struggling against D4 teams. Division 4. Both would have been reasonably fancied at the start of the year. That is actually a fair enough point.
Yeah, it is, and it's different to some of the quality of teams that even if you look back to 2017 that they would have struggled against. Like I think they needed extra time against both Derry and against Cork that year. You'd have to say that the current version of Monaghan and Kildare are much better teams than that. Like especially the win against Monaghan, it was just that they looked out against Kildare, and I think maybe like you've got two options. You can either judge it on the bit where Mayo looked like they were going to get knocked out by Kildare, or you can judge it on the bit where Mayo did this Mayo thing where they fought back from the dead and they showed up like zombies in the winners' enclosure at the end of that game. So that's kind of the situation that you find yourself in when you're trying to predict what Mayo will show up this weekend, because there are two very different versions of Mayo that we saw in Croke Park that day, I thought anyway, because like yes, they were bad for a lot of that game, but they had to be really good to arrest the 5-point deficit late in that game. So they have shown that they can turn it on at certain points this year, and I'd be even more encouraged by the fact that their purple patch came late in the game, because that would say to me that's like muscle memory, that's fitness. They're the sort of things that you can kind of cling to when you're trying to hope that they can turn it on this weekend. That I think they underperformed in the first 50 odd minutes of that game as opposed to overperforming in the last 20.
JP Wright, voice actor, as he points out on his YouTube handle. Kildare were by far the better team versus Mayo, which is really the point that you're making. They really exposed the Mayo defensive frailties, but lost concentration for the last 10 minutes. Kerry won't make the same mistake. Like, we wouldn't be giving Kildare much of a shake if they were into that fixture against Kerry this weekend, but like you say, it's the most Mayo conversation of all time. Nobody really knows anything could happen. That's the jeopardy of playing against Mayo.
I will say that the conversation has changed as the week has gone on, hasn't it? Like at the start of the weekend when the draw was initially made, it was like Mayo have no hope here. So I'm glad that people have woken up to the fact that this is Mayo. Like I was just bemusing that people were very quick to write this off as just my issue with this was categorising this game in the same breath as Derry against Clare and Dublin against Cork. Like I know I said earlier on that there was a chance that Derry in a massive game in Croke Park, Clare could do something this weekend, but I still think Derry will win. I still think Dublin will win. I just don't think Kerry Mayo is in the same conversation as that. I think it's far more uncertain in those two games. The outcome is
yeah. And even if Kerry are 5 or 6 points ahead after 20 minutes, nobody will be resting easy until the
no, you've got to. Yeah,
the stake is in the heart.
You get to like 15, 16 points, and then you can start to
relax. And even then, it's still Mayo. No other team would have beaten Kerry last year. Only Tyrone, says Pádraig Farley in Cavan.
I think it's hard to know. I think the feeling around that at half time, even last year in that Kerry Tyrone game, was that Mayo would have beaten Kerry in that final. But then when you saw Mayo in the final, you're like, well, Kerry would have beaten that Mayo team in the final. Do you know what I mean? So Kerry felt like the third best team left in the competition during that game against Tyrone last year because they were so bad. But then Mayo were also quite bad in the final. So maybe Kerry would have won that All-Ireland had they beaten Tyrone. You'll never know.
Injured Derry footballer Karl McKaigue joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Karl.
Good morning.
Thanks a million for jumping on. I don't know if you've been following any of that conversation. We'll come to you, Derry, in a minute, but Mayo and the fact that you don't know what the hell you're getting and they're never beaten.
No, definitely not. Probably for the first 50 minutes of that game against Kildare, I thought they were gone. They didn't show any signs of probably winning that game, but typical Mayo, they knuckled down. They pulled out a big performance in Croke Park. Now, it's definitely not going to be enough to take over the line against Kerry, but there's probably a big shock in that game. Still think Kerry will do it, but I think Mayo can bring a lot to it.
Yeah, and even within a game, you just don't know what's happening. You're out injured, and the timing of it has been awful in the context of Derry's run, obviously. A hip injury, how is it, Karl?
Aye, that's one of those things you just have to try and manage. Back doing a wee bit of stuff for the club at the minute. Hopefully get an operation off season, and whether that's enough to allow me to play county again next year remains to be seen. But I'll give it every chance for the rehab and up, and we'll just see how it goes.
What's involved? Is it get the surgery and there's some obviously rehab post that, and you're getting back to play? Like, are you concerned that you might never get back for Derry, or is it just a matter of time?
Well, I suppose now, at my age, I'll be 30 in the summer. Unfortunately, I've had a major injury before with the Kills back in 2020, so I was only really getting back from that. So it's a lot of time lost for county football. So it's always going to take away a wee bit of your athleticism, but we'll just see how it goes. I'll not, get too hasty on it now. See how the rehab goes and how I feel after it, and make a call on it that.
Have you been, when you've been watching the games this year, you must have been like, this is exactly what you've done all during your careers to get yourself to a position where Derry have been competitive and you can be part of that. I'm sure you've delighted in the success, obviously, your teammates and your family and stuff like that, but there must be a part of you going, jeez. Oh,
it's hard not to feel a wee bit of envy, but then I suppose when you're playing with them lads for a long time, both club and county players, you do feel very happy. I was the first man on the pitch in Clonus when they won, and couldn't be happier for the players and management group, and definitely no hard feelings, although it's sad we missed out on it, but you couldn't not push them all the bed.
What happens when an injury like that happens? Is it a situation where you make a decision to kind of not be around the camp at all year just to try and get yourself right, or do you pop in, have a chat with the lads, show up to sessions even though you're obviously not going to be talking off?
No, like I said to Rory, because I'd missed so much time there the previous year with the Achilles, that I didn't want to be sort of up and around rehab and gym and not really partaking in training for another whatever number of months. So I just thought at that point it was the best decision to step away, try and just get myself right and do it in my own sort of environment rather than sort of being like a spare wheel, if you want, around the Derry setup. So I think it was probably the best one headspace and probably the squad as well, just to do it that way.
When that happens in February, did you know that you were onto something special this year at that point in the season?
I'll be lying if I said I thought I was going to go maybe as good as it has went. Did I think there was potential for it? Yes. The setup probably over the last few years now has been top class. You can see that it's taken Rory a wee while to get to this point, but there's always been a clear plan to get to there. And I suppose now it's maybe come earlier than expected, but I do think Derry can keep on that sort of journey now for a good while as long as we keep Rory at the helm through younger players which are in the county at the moment. So Derry football's in a really good place.
He seems to have been a huge part of this all, which is obviously stating the bloody obvious. But at what point do you realise that what Rory Gallagher was bringing to proceedings was something a bit different, was something that would elevate you to a higher level?
I suppose there's two things. Firstly, you're just looking at him from a tactical point of view. He's second to none. Certainly nobody that I've ever been under before had that level of tactical nous. And then secondly, what he demands is playing grip. So before you would have thought you were a county player just by maybe turning up here 3 or 4 times a week. He demands that wee bit more, whether it's extra video nights, whether it's extra S&C. Peter Hughes was brought in as an S&C coach, and he's basically full-time. He can come to your own house and your own gym if you want to do an extra session. So it's just that extra level of professionalism that Rory's brought to it, which really probably has elevated Derry to this next level. Which is obviously really important in the context of the last couple of years and how teams have used the years away from the pitch. So that SNC bit is obviously something that really worked, probably doubled for Derry over the last little while, having not played as many games as you would have been used to. I think so. Lockdown probably came at a very good time for Derry. That's been documented well before. The level of athleticism that's needed to try and bridge that gap with Kerry, Mayo, Dublin was massive. And I think Derry now are probably getting very, very close to that if they're not already at that level. You can see in their game so far, I thought probably for large parts of the throwing game, they'd run throwing off the pitch. Monaghan really struggled to deal with their athleticism, so hopefully now they can keep it at that level and push on to say that very, very elite with them top 2 or 3 teams.
Did you always know that was the missing part, Karl, or at least a significant part of the missing bit, the fitness and the strength and conditioning? Or is it only something that when the changes happen you realise, right, okay, that's what we were missing all along?
It's not always going to be the be all and end all. But in saying that, if you don't have that, I don't think you have any chance whatsoever. You're going to need more than just pure athleticism to compete at the top. You're going to need that football ability. You're going to need good management setup with tactical ability. And as I say, Derry have got that already with Rory and Kieran and Enda. But as I say, it's just getting that playing grip to that next level of athleticism that's really going to give you that platform to compete with the likes of Dublin and Kerry.
Do you chat to Chrissy on a week like this, or are you told to, no questions?
Oh no, as I say, from being involved myself, you sort of know the crack. You don't want to be spreading sort of in-house things out, so I wouldn't even, ask him too much about the setup or who's going to be playing or who's going to be marking who, but I sort of have a fair idea what way it's going to line up on Saturday.
The Pat Nolan in the Irish Mirror, his piece started by saying there were only 3 people that referred to Chrissy McCaigue as Christopher, his parents and Rory Gallagher. Why don't you defer to him as Christopher?
He's actually left me out. I probably would. Maybe just you instead of Christopher. But as I say, it's testament probably to the relationship between the two at the minute.
Why has he had such a good season in your view?
Who, Christopher or Rory?
Christopher or Chrissy, whichever way you want to refer to him.
I suppose, if you're playing the full back line, you do have to be in the top of your game, athletically and even from a concentration point of view. But even probably the way Derry are set up, yes, there's been a lot made to get everybody behind the ball, but there's more to it than that. It's getting to a certain zone. It's knowing what players are going to pull the trigger. And I say, if you're man-to-man on a marquee forward and all them all things are being taken care of with your defensive structure, it does make it a bit easier, not to take away from the individual job. But I think, once you get that confidence in the setup that you're playing in, that you can just go and concentrate so on a good forward, and that does make that job an awful lot easier.
It's like he really seems to kind of revel in the art of the man-to-man encounter, and I was kind of chatting to him in Croke Park a few weeks ago after the Ulster final win, and he just revels in this idea of keeping a man scoreless, and it is in the back of his head that McCurry got a couple of scores off him in the Tyrone game. It's just that competitive instinct. What makes him such a great marker, Karl, from your own experience?
Well, probably like you say there, the mindset to just go out with that absolute attitude that I don't want this man to touch the ball. I suppose you have to be physically in a position to do that as well. So he is probably getting on a wee bit now. He'll not like me for saying that, but in saying that, he takes care of himself pretty well. And I think probably the main thing is that mindset. He just goes out. He doesn't want whether it's going to be McCurry or Paddy Beardy to touch the ball. He definitely doesn't want them to get a shot away or score. So just having that drilled into your psyche, I think, goes a long way to try and nullify them players.
Well, that's interesting, that bit. You don't want them to touch the ball, because it does feel that there's not a disagreement, but I feel there's like 2 different schools of defending. That one, you just stop your man getting the ball full stop, you defend in front of your man, and that's it. Maybe get one of your arms in. The other school is, let them have the ball and then guard them, keep them outside, don't let them into the scoring zone. So is that his mentality? Is that the Derry way, or what informs that, get to the ball first before the man?
Well, I think if you're playing the full back line, generally speaking, the top forwards aren't going to come out too far beyond 30, 35 yards. And I think whenever the top class forwards get the ball in their hands in that position, you think of Clifford, you think of O'Callaghan. As soon as the ball is in their hands, it's very, very difficult to do anything about it. It's maybe different if you're playing a wee bit further out, maybe marking a centre half forward or a wing half forward. But if you're marking an inside man, he gets his hands on the ball anywhere around probably 35, 40 yards. That's maybe as good as a score. So I think, trying to stop it at source and not let them actually get in possession goes a long way to stop them getting that score.
Just to touch back on something you mentioned earlier, Karl, just about Rory's approach, and I watched back a little bit of his appearance on the football pod. It was sort of the back end of last year, and he was talking about that whole thing of, you mentioned about trying to get the best out of players. He was saying that tactics are important, but you have to be improving players, as in he was seeing that as the most important thing. He said you want to empower them, and he said tactics are overrated, which I found an interesting comment at the time, but more in the context of you saying that also, obviously, you're looking at zones, you're trying to get the ball into the hands of the shooter. Where is the balance at for you, or is he underplaying the tactical side almost there?
Like I say, Rory's not only a brilliant tactician, but see his hands-on coaching and his individual coaching is probably second to none as well. Obviously, that's probably how he made his name, is a number 2 or a coach sort of at the very start of his career. So he's done a lot of work with players individually, getting them to see things that maybe they just wouldn't normally ever see. You can see the way Sheahan McGuigan has played. He's added another sort of level to his game. Even if you look about, some of the halfbacks, Conor Doherty was always seen as a midfielder or half forward. He's transformed into a brilliant halfback this season. So it's not only that tactical thing that is important, and as he's mentioned, it's the coaching side of things and getting the most out of players, and maybe seeing that certain players have actually ability to do big roles in other positions. That's just sort of opening their eyes to that and then trying to develop them into that sort of player.
And the way he treats players almost, Karl, am I reading too much into it, or is that an aspect of it as well?
He treats players, with a lot of respect. If you put in the work for him, he'll certainly honour you, he'll play you. He probably can be a wee bit of a harsh taskmaster at times. He does want to get the most out of you, and he will let you know if you're sort of falling below the standards that he's sort of expecting of you. But he can have the crack too. He's not sort of all fire and brimstone. He's a good relationship with most of the players. Players sort of would do anything for him there at the minute, and I think you can see that in the performances. So overall, it's a very good relationship he has. He
came across in that interview as well as if he was really gunning for Ulster this year. Is that something that you spoke about overly within the group?
Well, probably even, I think when Rory came in a few years ago, I think the goal at that point in time was to try and get an Ulster Championship first. Obviously, the promotion from whatever division we were in at the time, I think it was Division 3, was of vital importance. But I think, to try and get Derry to that point where they're getting an Ulster Championship again, I say it's a long time since 98. And I think it was so important to try and get a wee bit of silverware, some sort of stepping stone, to try and get to that very elite level, which is a wee bit above the Ulster Championship being, the level of Kerry and Dublin.
So he sits in a room and he says, lads, we're going to win Ulster. Is that what happens, or how does that play out, and what's the reaction?
No, it probably wasn't as brash as that. He said, look, we have to be going for that sort of ambition. At the minute, when he took over Derry, we're certainly nowhere near an Ulster title, probably maybe 4th, 5th, 6th on the pecking order. But he did see that there was potential probably within the playing group. Yes, they needed a lot of work. Yes, it probably needed a lot of weeding out of certain players and characters. But he's sort of done that over the first few years, got the players he wanted involved. At that point then he can really start making developments with what he has. And I suppose now we're just seeing that, and this is his 3rd season in, so it hasn't been overnight, but it's certainly come pretty quick comparing to what position Derry were in before he started. Did you need
convincing of that, or was that the process that you're talking about there in terms of keeping some players and getting rid of others? Was that the thing that dealt with the ones that were on board with that notion, were the ones that hung around, or did you as a group need convincing that actually, Jesus, he might be right here?
Probably, you thought you were training hard at that point in time until Rory came in and said what he was demanding. You thought, is that even possible? But you soon find out it actually is. And I mentioned earlier, he demands a lot from you, extra nights during the week and whatever, and maybe an extra day at the weekend. And I say that naturally will just sort of weed out players that want to be involved, that truly want to be involved. And I say he done that weeding out process. He got a core group of players that he wanted and that wanted to be there. And I say once you have that, you have everybody sort of rowing in one direction. That's when you can make real progress. And you have to believe, like that group that are there committing to that. Like you have to believe that what he's saying is right, and there is a carrot at the end here. You're not going to turn up, like it's already a huge commitment, isn't it, as an inter-county footballer? Never mind an extra couple of days a week. Yeah, massively. And as I say, there probably was days at the start where you were questioning, is this all sort of worth it, because you didn't see the results straight away. Like last year, Derry put on a huge sort of amount of training before the Donegal Championship game, and everyone firmly believed they were going to win it, and that was a wee bit of a kick in the teeth not getting over the line that day. I think if there had been a qualifier system last year, Derry could have went pretty far in it, but the fact was that there wasn't, and it was knockout that day. The season was over. But it just shows you the quality and the work that was done last year has actually carried through to this year, because Derry have just went from strength to strength, and they've got over that sort of hurdle of getting a win in Ulster, and have went on to win an Ulster Championship. So it's definitely going the right direction.
That Donegal game last year was quite interesting, because I think for a lot of people on the outside looking in, it was like, okay, this team is ready to compete at Championship, because we'd seen the form in the league, and it was like, how are they actually going to match up against a team like Donegal? And I know you lost on the day, but it was like, Jesus, there was a bounce of a ball and it could have gone differently, and it could have been a Division 1 scalp in the Ulster Championship.
Yeah, definitely. People say Derry were competitive that day. I would even say a step further, Derry left that one behind them. If you look back and do the analysis, Roy done a wee bit of analysis before it left on that game. think Derry left maybe 2-8 or 2-9, easy enough scores behind, and Donegal didn't. I say it came down to that one wonder point from Paddy McBeardy at the end, but I say Derry at that point probably should have been 6 points to the good. But in saying that, although it was a loss, you still get confidence from a more than competitive performance, and it probably was a good sort of springboard for this 21 season to go on and kick on and do what they've actually done.
How has Gallagher tapped into the countless family connections that exist within the squad? Like, it's hard to think of another squad in Ireland that has more sets of brothers. If we obviously throw yourself and Chrissy in there as one of, I think, about 6 or 7 sets of brothers in that squad.
That's interesting. I probably don't know the exact reason behind it, but if you're even looking at the radius of where all the Derry, certainly the starting 15 or 20 that play in most days, it's all within a very small radius in South Derry, probably about 10 miles or so outside of Mahara. And obviously, South Derry's a Gaelic football stronghold. All brothers play for their clubs. They want to push on and do well, and it just happened to be that at this point in time, there's a lot of very good brothers that are actually able to play county football, and that they're all buying into it and they want to be there, and they're actually playing well under Rory. So it's an interesting one. I'm not sure the exact reason why, but it's an interesting one, surely.
One commenter here on YouTube, Carl, says Derry bet Clare handy in Ennis earlier in the league. Think it was close to a 10-point win. It was 9 points, and they'll beat Clare tomorrow. That does seem to be the consensus out there.
If you look at the bookies odds, I think Derry were 1-7. And I think probably Rory done an interview during the week. It summed up pretty well. If Derry play well, Derry will win. I don't even think, don't want to be disrespectful to Clare, but I don't even think Derry have to be at their very best to win. I think, Clare are going to struggle to score enough to give themselves a chance to win the game. I know Derry probably haven't been scoring a big amount of points, but they have been getting goals in every game. So I think, they do have to be solid. I think Derry, if they keep a clean sheet, don't concede goals, they'll definitely win the game. And I suppose probably being 4 weeks out from that Donegal game doesn't help them. Might be a wee bit cagey at the start, but I do fully expect Derry to win the game.
Who's Christie going to mark? Does he automatically look at like David Tubridy? Does he automatically pick up the marquee scoring forward?
It's probably going to be one of Tubridy or Sexton, I would imagine. Maybe it depends on who plays closest to goal, I would think.
So himself and maybe Brendan Rodgers actually make a game time decision on where the forward is positioned?
I think you have to be adaptable. If you look back to the Donegal game, Brendan played out with Michael Murphy. I think if Michael Murphy had played inside, he maybe would have been on him as well. It's hard to tell, but I think you have to be pretty fluid because teams will try and upset a wee bit and change personnel a bit to try and upset sort of the system or where you used to be playing at. So a wee bit of flexibility is sort of expected, but probably 1 or 2 players, you're not going to be deviating outside of that.
The one kind of cautionary note that's been mentioned quite a lot around Derry is how does their style of play translate to Croke Park? Do you have any concerns about that at all?
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this sort of Derry style of play. I don't think it's an awful lot different to probably what Kerry are doing this year under Paddy Talley. Even Dublin most of the time probably defend with 14 or 15. Derry are doing no different. I suppose what's difficult is it's getting them breakaways all of the time, so you have to be conditioned to do that for 70 minutes. I think Derry are probably at that level where they can get close to that. I think maybe a wee bit concerning is, probably from the subs bench, Derry have only been bringing on 1 or 2 players, and even players that have come off, like Benny Hare and Niall Tunner, have actually been coming back on a wee bit. So perhaps squad depth is maybe the only concern going down the stretch in a bigger, faster pitch like Croke. But I do think that, with the legs that they do have, that counter-attacking sort of, 15 behind the ball, breaking 10, charging up the pitch at one time is going to get them far in this championship.
Can they win the All-Ireland?
I suppose you can't really make a call on that until you see them up against either Kerry or Dublin. So, as I said before, Kerry and Dublin are that wee step ahead. Derry haven't played anybody of that calibre just yet. I know they've beat the Ireland champions Tyrone, but I don't see Tyrone just at that level. So it'll remain to be seen if Derry are lucky enough to get Clare and the winners of maybe Armagh or Galway, and you get into a final. Who knows, in a one-off game? Same with Tyrone last year. But I don't think they'll be too far away. I think they'll at least be competitive. But whether it's enough just to beat them at the minute remains to be seen.
there would never be a team that has been least talked about before the championship started, and to go on, nobody. I mean, I'm sure that within the camp that was the talk that was going on, but there wasn't anybody outside it saying predicting Derry to win it. It'd be an incredible run.
No, people were even saying before the championship, Derry have got another terrible draw in Ulster this year again. We're going to have to, beat Tyrone in the first round, who seem to get in the first round nearly every other year, and then after that you have to beat the 2 other Division 1 teams in Donegal and Monaghan. So nobody's seen it coming. There would have been confidence within the Derry group that they were definitely capable of doing it. But the fact now that they've beat Tyrone, they beat 2 other Division 1 teams, has really given them that bit of confidence. And I think there is probably a level of expectation now, which might be a wee bit more difficult to manage. But I think the playing group and the management group are well capable of dealing with that.
Yeah, well, look, we'll have you on again to preview the semi-final, right? That's our commitment this morning.
Problem at all.
Good,
all
man.
Right, thanks for
enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, Karl. Karl McKaigue on the line there, looking ahead to the football at the weekend, and the Derry particularly. It's such an interesting story, isn't it? Like, and it's the whole Schlock-Neil connection, and as you say, the sets of brothers that are there, as he points out, the 10-mile radius around Mahara, where there's maybe one player, I think, from Derry City, and maybe one other player from outside that radius, and that's sort of it. It's amazing how, like, I don't think it's ever really a coincidence. And actually, funny enough, I think people on YouTube are really trying to wind you up this morning on, but Offaly 82 team, says John Claffey, had a lot of brothers. Remember, that's the team that stopped Kerry with the 5 in a row.
Remember it though.
I don't think it's ever a coincidence when you see family members achieving to that high level, because it's almost as if you're looking around and going, well, he was able to get onto that team, I can get onto that team. There's, like, when you see it happening in front of you, it becomes a far more tangible thing than it does for the rest of us schleps.
I'd say so, yeah. Like, I mean, Tommy Welsh always talks about, like, the vast array of cousins that they had. That was like, that was a real sort of boot camp for the Kilkenny hurlers, was the Welsh cousins going hammer and tongs at it before in their childhood. So it's definitely a factor for sure, and it's pretty cool that if they get all the way this year, there's going to be a lot of Celtic crosses in the same household and stuff like that. And like, what I found really interesting is no one in Derry is getting carried away with themselves. Like, I mean, what Karl said there is exactly what Christy McCaigue said a few weeks ago at that media event in Croke Park, is that we're actually just not sure if we can beat Kerry or Dublin at the moment. Like, there is a realistic expectation that they have. But counter to that, there must just be this deep confidence that, we were good enough to win Ulster, which means you're good enough to beat most of the best teams in the country. So, I think their mentality is in a very sound place, and Gallagher's just done such a brilliant job. Like, I'm not 100% sure they are going to beat Clare this weekend. You'd be confident that they will, and I just cannot wait to see Derry against either of Galway or Armagh in the semi-final.
Derry Armagh, I have to say, would be an absolute belter, wouldn't it? I mean, the battle on the sideline, apart from anything else, it's...
Yeah, I think both of those are good. Like, I think that those Derry backs against those Galway forwards would be very, very interesting as well. So whoever's going to come out of that Galway Armagh match is going to be an interesting prospect in the semi-final and potentially the final as well. It's just that side of the draw is brilliant. Like, to be honest, like that, those 4 teams have kind of breathed a bit of fresh life into the championship this year, and it's been great.
From within the camps, and I've been told by the producer to park this and move on because we've the quick fix coming, and that's a fair point. But one last point on it is that, like, within the camps, they will of course say, as in Galway, Armagh, Derry, maybe Clare, externally they will say, oh, well, listen, any team that gets to a semi-final is a good team, and look, there's a bit of truth to that, but geez, when you look at it, avoiding the likes of Dublin or Mayo or Kerry on that side of the draw, it's wide open for whoever comes through there. Incredible. Because,
like, teams can get through to the semi-finals. Like, I mean, obviously we had it with Tipperary on a couple of occasions. Like, the COVID years were weird, but even in like 2016-17, wasn't it, that they get to a semi-final, then they kind of go up against Mayo, and Mayo were expected to beat them, whereas there is no traditional Mayo, Dublin, Kerry, Tyrone sort of team on that side. So it's just going to be novel. It's going to be a novel All-Ireland final, and it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah. Righto, 8:25. Good morning to you, wherever it is you're at. You're watching OTBAM on this Friday morning. Adrian Eoin with you until 10 this morning. And a reminder as well that Gough Weekly is heading to the beautiful Killeen Castle on Tuesday, July the 5th. Killeen Castle, described by host of Gough Weekly, Joe Malloy, is one of the finest parkland courses in the country, so you need no more recommendation than that. And we've got a brilliant day lined up on the 5th of July. It's going to be a Peter Lorry golf clinic from midday. We'll have a live podcast recording that evening. You'll have a few light bites after your round, prizes up for grabs as well on the day, and of course that round of golf at the brilliant Killeen Castle. Gough Weekly Golf Days are exclusive events for friends of the pod So you can't get there unless you're fully signed up to be a friend of the pod, a Gough Weekly patron. You can head along to otbsports.com/Gough Weekly to find out exactly how to do all that. And in the meantime, next up, we're going to have the GA Quick Picks All-Ireland quarter-final special. We'll see you back after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Marginal gains, XG, top speed, recovery. What's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong. Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match, because somewhere out there, there's someone for you, and GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Some of these critics, these pundits,
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time from them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
that like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just dismiss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
All right, time for the Friday Quick Picks. Will, good morning to you.
Morning lads, how you getting on?
Good, I think we have a leaderboard, so let's get straight into that. See exactly what's going on here. Look at this thing. Stats and stats on don't really mean anything. Fair play, Aisling. She's leading the way, 80% of correct predictions. Tommy's not far behind. Will is so-so. And then myself and Owen.
How did this happen? What went so badly over the last 2 weeks? I was like in second place there a while ago. What?
I thought I've had a couple of good weeks. I actually have had a couple of good weeks. My record was 40-something the last time I see that leaderboard.
What happened over the last couple of weeks, Will? What changed? To refresh our memory.
I'm not sure. I think we pretty much all went 100% last week, didn't we? With the 4 games, so that has to have helped. 80% sounds remarkably high for Aisling.
Fishy, like, is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is, has she literally got everything correct the last few weeks and just kind of slowly but surely we weren't paying attention because we didn't have a scoreboard and didn't realise that she's knocking it out of the park? Because
possibly,
like, to get 4 predictions out of every 5 correct seems really, really high at this stage.
Well, to be fair, last year she was knocking it out of the ballpark with her predictions left, right and centre. She's pretty much continued. It's not a surprise to anybody that Aisling is top of the leaderboard, I suppose is the point. But
not so much the top of the leaderboard, more so just the margin of lead currently. I can see us bringing back in things like predicting points and whatever else over the last couple of games to try and keep this interesting into the final stretch. Otherwise, she is going to run away with this.
I am interested to see which way we're going to go on these 4 games. So I think we're all going one direction with the first game, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Derry Clare, what have we got? It's Derry across the board, and Owen is probably the one that I've heard at all this week who's sounding a strong note of, hang on a second here.
But there's going to be I think there's going to be a lot of hypocrisy in all of our arguments this week. Like I do think that there's a bit of a recency bias to some of the teams that are coming through the quarterfinals, that came through round 2 of the qualifiers. I think that maybe we sometimes get carried away with like brilliant performances that have happened. Like for example, I think Armagh are very on brand right now because of what they did more recently than say Derry, which was their ultra final win was a few weeks previous to that. But I just think this thing's going to be more difficult for Derry than we think, and I think that comes with the expectation. They're favourites to win a game this season. You know, it's a team that they were expected to beat against a side that have won in Croke Park already this season, that are a good team, that are another Division 2 team. It's 2 teams that are stuck in Division 2 again next year, going head to head. And I know Derry beat them well in the league this year. The only kind of form between these teams that we have, and like I have predicted Derry to win. Like I'm absolutely watching this tomorrow with a sense of, you know, Clare could do something very, very interesting in this. I'm not sure if they have the legs to go all the way with this Derry team, but if the cliche about Clare down through the years has been Colm Collins has done this incredible job, then we have to have trust that Colm Collins will have a game plan to nullify Derry and to exploit Derry tomorrow. So I think that this is going to be a dark horse for potentially one of the games of the weekend.
Well,
yeah, I'm not going to be shaken from my belief that Derry are going to deliver. Like, I think you're talking about a lot of intangibles when one of the strongest arguments being made against Derry is this idea of, how are Derry going to translate to playing at Croke Park? I was there the last time that they played in Croke Park, which was the Division 3 football final last year, and they ran riot at Croke Park. So I don't share that concern about Derry. Like, they've been very impressive so far. Appreciate Owen's point too, that sometimes we look at the teams who've come through a couple of round of qualifiers in recent weeks and we kind of put the provincial winners to the back of our mind to a little bit. But Derry have been so impressive in everything that they've done so far. Won pretty handsomely when the teams met in the league. I appreciate that was a few months ago now, and a lot has probably changed since. Clare will definitely come on from the way they finished that game against Roscommon. But if we're being deadly honest here, Roscommon absolutely S the Togs towards the end of that game in the qualifiers, and they opened the door for Clare. Clare took their chances, and I'm sure they're going to come on from the experience of winning that game, and particularly getting a game at Croke Park. And it's important we don't patronise Clare too. Like we said kind of outset of the year when they played against Limerick, that there's this idea of aren't Clare doing very well to stay in Division 2, etc. Like, they've been a consistent Division 2 team for quite some time now, and there'd be the feeling that they want to kick on in the championship now and potentially get to a semi-final. So I think it's perfectly understandable if Clare people have got expectation that they can go out there, although I think it's very understandable that Derry are strong favourites going into this game, and that's the reason we've backed them across the board, isn't it?
Can I ask, if it was Roscommon against Derry today, would we have a clean sweep for Derry? Yeah. I'm not sure. I think there might have been a predictor or two, we can call ourselves that, in there going for Roscommon. Clare beat that Roscommon team, were good enough. I know you are right, Will. There was a bit of a crumbling from Roscommon late on. Maybe Clare got the rub of the green a little bit late on, but they still had to deliver on that. They still had to be in that position to take advantage of a team that was crumbling a little bit. So there's not a whole pile between Clare and Roscommon, I think. So that's why I've got really big hopes for this as a contest.
All you've done is tempered my prediction of what the score difference will be.
What do you think it's going to be?
I, on the basis of what you're saying there, maybe a little bit tighter than I might have predicted initially, but maybe 4 or 5 points, maybe a little bit more.
Possibly. Derry have been getting goals in games, and they've been getting early goals in games, and if they get an early goal at the weekend and get early control of this game, I think that it would be very hard to see a different outcome other than a Derry win.
And also a lot of
one thing is, Clare probably won't set up, Adrian, in a way that some of the teams have been counter-attacked by Derry. I think Clare are going to be clever to not invite the counter press back onto them, and Clare might actually play a little bit conservatively. Although it was interesting, I was reading Eamon Fitzmaurice talking about the fact that maybe there might be merit in Clare at different times squeezing up the press, particularly onto the Derry kick out to try and put pressure onto them. So it's going to be an intriguing tactical battle coming into this weekend. This is the nice thing about having what feels like a relatively fresh matchup, with the exception of them playing each other in the league. It feels a while since these teams have played. I know we'll talk about the wonderful familiarity of Kerry and Mayo in a little bit, but that's one of the intriguing things about the tactical battle tomorrow, is how far do Clare push up, or do they stay conservative, full in the knowledge that Derry will love the idea of Clare committing players forward and space being left behind? Because exactly like Owen said, they've blitzkrieg teams on the counter-attack throughout the season so far.
Yeah, Karl McKaigue was going with Derry, and for anybody who hasn't just watching us on demand and hasn't seen that, go and check it out over there. He's very good, and I'm going with him. Dublin Cork is next up, and Dublin across the board. I don't know if this is we should spend a huge amount of time talking about this, but Cork have had very little to beat en route to get here. They Colm outside is producer Colm not happy with us. But listen, Sinead, I think in terms of genuine top 10 teams to get there, like Limerick, and then the Louth game was only by 4 points. And if you do that whole Irish thing of Louth, who Kildare obviously pulled us under, who Dublin subsequently pulled us under, I don't think there's any discussion about this one, really, is there?
As fortunate draws go, Adrian, they got the two teams who were promoted from Division 3 at home in the qualifiers to get here.
Yeah. Are you didn't take a breath, as in we shouldn't get too far ahead of ourselves here, or
no, as in it's very hard to find something interesting to say about. 2019 was an interesting one. This was was it the football pod referred to as a dead rubber in 2019? People forget this was the first game of the Super 8s in 2019 in Croke Park, Dublin against Cork. This was the opening night, so Dublin had to show up and play well, and Cork got at them a little bit, and I accept that sounds stupid considering Dublin scored 5 goals that night, but in the context of Dublin being infallible during those 6 years when they won all the All-Irelands, I think Cork got at them, and there is this pig-headedness that we know that every Cork person has, and it's the great thing about them.
What you're talking about, Owen?
I am looking forward in kind of an exhibition way to seeing like Sherlock and O'Mahony, assuming they're both playing and everybody's fit for Cork in Croke Park this weekend, and seeing what they can do to that Dublin full back line that had questions asked of them during the league. And I do think that the caution around anointing Dublin as All-Ireland champion so far is around that defence. So maybe we can get some questions answered about Dublin this weekend in terms of what they'll concede.
We won't. We'll look at maybe, right?
But they'll score enough to
exactly.
go
Look,
Cork
when we're predicting, when Dublin get through here and we're talking about previewing the semi-final, we're not going to be basing any of it based on Cork. Really,
unless Cork show some frailties in the Dublin defence, which is my point. I think there's a chance that maybe there is just more questions asked of the Dublin defence. Okay. But then again, the Kildare full forward line should have been able to ask those questions.
Moving swiftly on, Galway Armagh, and let's see which way our predictions. I predict that there's going to be a bit of a difference here. Now there is, and it's only one way. Tommy's gone for Galway and everybody else has gone for Armagh. And look, I do think in terms of the finest margins between teams, this is probably the one for me. If we're saying Dublin Cork is definitely going one direction, I'm really not sure about this one, but it's for me purely based on the fact that Galway haven't obviously played a competitive game in a couple of months. It's been a mad quirk of that you get badly punished to win your provincial championship, but a bit of a mad quirk of this setup. But in contrast, the best thing to happen to Armagh was obviously losing to Donegal at the start of May. Couple of weeks to regroup after that, and then obviously bang at it against Tyrone, and they're very fit, and they've had their little circuitous route. They've had opportunities for retribution, obviously, all along the way. Listen to Kieran Duggan after the game the last day talking to Oisin. He was saying all the right things about where they're at. Really complimentary, obviously, about Kieran McGeeney, and look, I also think that's a factor. You're in that Armagh side. You've got the two Kierans in your ear heading into that game, because I do think a big part of it will be, it's pointed out in one of the papers this morning, it might be the Star, about Galway's shocking record at Croke Park. It might have been 2 wins from 17 games since the 2001 final. Like we mentioned about the factor of playing at Croke Park for across a few of these previews today. But it's for those reasons, Galway's in action. The two Kierans in your ear from an Armagh point of view, and like Galway do have a bad record at Croke Park, but I for those reasons I'm leaning towards Armagh. Will, what are you thinking?
Yeah, you've probably sold a few of the arguments there before we even start, but look, it's hard not to be very impressed with the way that Armagh have played in recent weeks, while Galway were sitting at home shining up the Nestor Cup and waiting for this fixture to come around. They're the only, slight spoiler ahead of our chat about Kerry and Mayo, they're the only provincial champion that I'm actually opposing against in the predictions today, and that's more so about Armagh than it is about Galway. I'm shocked that Tommy Rooney has not gone for Armagh, because he has backed Armagh, I think, if whoever's in the stats for the board, for pretty much every game we've had this year, and then he flips for Galway once Armagh get back to Croke Park for an All-Ireland quarter-final. So it's been remarkable from Armagh, really. It feels like it's only a few weeks ago we were talking about difficult qualifier draws for them, and potentially Kieran McGeeney be under pressure, and then they've produced a couple of big performances now to get to a quarter-final. I think they're coming with a real steam behind them. I think they're a very exciting team. I think Croke Park is going to suit them. As you say, Galway have got a horrific record at Croke Park, which even in recent memory goes back to losing out to Roscommon in the Division 2 League final only earlier this season. And I think that this Armagh team are moving really well, and I fancy them to beat Galway at the weekend. But yeah, this is probably, with the exception of Kerry Mayo, which is also a very, very tight encounter, probably the toughest one to call for this weekend. I thought we were going to have a 50-50 split in this.
I did too, I have to say. I thought it was going to be much tighter than that.
Yeah. And I guess maybe we're all getting sucked into the recency bias that we talked about at the top of the show here, that Armagh's run through the qualifiers is affecting us, but we can't forget that it's been really impressive. Like beating Donegal, in my eyes, is more impressive than beating Roscommon, which also happened a longer time ago, and that's not the entire basis of it. It's actually the third Kieran that I'd be putting my trust in this weekend, and that Armagh defence and what they're doing under McKeever, and how they managed to lock up this Galway defence, which is probably giving me a little bit of extra hope. That I would have more hope in Armagh locking up Galway's forwards than vice versa, and that's just why I'm going for Armagh. Like, I'm not sure that's going to happen, but it's something that maybe they've shown over the last couple of weeks, that defence can be pretty watertight when it needs to be. Like, they got to grips with Donegal after their purple patch early in that qualifier game, and I still think early in that qualifier game everything was going over the bar for Donegal. Maybe Armagh were happy enough for them to be taking the shots from where they were taking them from. They weren't necessarily in that traditional scoring zone, and maybe Donegal were overachieving their expected points, if you can use that phrase, at that point. So I think that actually the Armagh defence is something that's been pretty impressive so far this year, even though it's the attacking flair and the kick passing which has been the stuff that's kind of wowed us all, and the stuff that we've loved so much about watching this Armagh team all the way back to the first night of the league in Croke Park.
I do think the idea of an Armagh Derry semi-final is an absolute cracker. Just everything that would be involved there would be a belter. So let's go Armagh. Mayo, Kerry. Will's already hinted at his tip here. Kerry across the board. Did you not say that you were opposing the provincial winners? Will, I've obviously missed.
Just one. No, the only one I'm opposed
yeah.
to Galway.
Yeah. So Kerry across the board. And look at again. There's a case for Mayo here, but on form, Moilsey was on with the lads during the week, Will, making the point that maybe Mayo are suited this Kerry team, and I think Owen was the one that said tongue-in-cheek that they don't like it up them, but the idea that you might get a few of those Mayo defenders bombing on, the few of those Lee Keegan pitching wedge points that are, if we could pick out something that should deserve an award at the end of the season, the quality of some of those scores from where he's coming from and the manner of the execution is... they are sights to behold, but probably not enough, Will, to get the job done here on Sunday.
I don't think so. But again, from the start of the programme today, I would share Owen's concern, which is that Kerry could well come into this reasonably flat because of just the lack of championship action that they've had and the ease with which they won the Munster Championship, even though Cork frustrated them a little bit. It was such a comfortable win against Limerick, and then a long wait from last month to wait for this fixture to actually come around. And obviously, we have to wait and see what's going to happen with David Clifford's fitness ahead of the game. We saw how, Kerry dismantled a little bit when Clifford went off the pitch in the All-Ireland semi-final last year in the defeat against Tyrone. So there are question marks that obviously hang over Kerry. At the same time, you could look at the bank of work that Kerry have behind them this year, where they won the National Football League, where they looked comfortable in the league final when they played against Mayo the last time that they met. It's hard to argue against what Kerry have done so far, but are they going to be a little bit rusty? And if they are, does that give Mayo an opportunity? The argument, I think, against Mayo is probably partly coming into the excitement that we've seen from so far in the qualifiers, the way that they, really used up probably 8 of their 9 lives against Kildare in the last round of the qualifiers to actually get here. We salute the fact that Mayo were able to dig in and the exciting finish and the way that they won the game. But realistically, I think most teams left in the All-Ireland Championship would have put the foot in the neck when they were 6 points up in the way that Kildare were during that game. So again, you're talking about so many different intangibles, and the idea of Mayo being great in their run through the back door and they can potentially beat anybody on their day. But you're talking about a Mayo team getting to a level to beat someone on their day if they're going to beat Kerry. I think Kerry have to be a little bit off it if Mayo are going to win as well.
I agree with that last bit that Will said, and I think that's kind of a key reason why we're all going for Kerry here. We know that they can turn it on and they can be at their awesome best when everybody in that forward line is firing, and I guess in the context of this weekend, fit. If everybody in that Kerry forward line is fit, we know what they can do. But it's actually kind of the other side of the ball, which is the most intriguing element for Kerry this year, that there is this intangible mentality question around Kerry that existed last year, choking against Tyrone. And we could debate this one way or another when we preview this weekend. We won't know until Sunday afternoon if that's a true thing. Something that we do know for certain is that Kerry got undone by soft enough goals in that game against Tyrone last year. They got done in a soft goal against Cork the previous year. So it's not just a mentality thing, it is the concession of goals, which is absolutely sidetracked Kerry's chance at winning an All-Ireland over the last couple of years. You could even go back to the 2019 replay, the Merchant goal. Green flags have been Kerry's problem in conceding over the last couple of years, as much as the mentality question. So if you dig into the numbers, there was actually signs of this happening last year in the Munster Championship. They played Clare, they played Tip, they played Cork in the Munster Championship last year. They hammered all 3. You'll remember nothing about any of those games, but what I can tell you is that they conceded a goal in every single one of those games. And when they got to Croke Park against Tyrone, they ended up conceding 3 of them, and that was their championship done and dusted. This year, it probably feels like Kerry went through the Munster Championship in exactly the same way as last year, as in beating everybody pretty healthily and put in front of them. The one difference, though, is that they didn't concede a single goal. That absolutely maintains when you compare last year's league to this year's league. 2021, they conceded 6 goals in just 4 league games. This year, they conceded just 2 goals in 8 league games. So when you look at those numbers, you can absolutely make a case that Kerry are far harder to score goals against this season. And as a result, and this is stating the bloody obvious, is that they are far harder to beat this year than they were last year. And that's all you can judge it on.
Statue to Paddy Tally up on the Dingle Peninsula when they get this done. Is that
Paddy Tally? Then there is then there's all the other kind of stuff that we can chat about, and maybe they will crumble on Sunday, and all of a sudden that becomes front and centre. It's not just about conceding goals. It is where is his team's head at. The other things you can say, to be fair, like on the Mayo context, is the sway that players they were missing on league final day, and we were going through this the other day. Rob Henley, Oisin Mullen, Paddy Durkin, Diarmuid O'Connor, Rowan McLaughlin, missing those players for the league final is the reason why they lost by such a huge amount. Jordan Flynn coming off injured did not help. Cillian O'Connor not being Cillian O'Connor that day, just coming on for the last 15 minutes, didn't help. And as we've said, they are not going to leave Paul Jagohora one-on-one with David Clifford if he plays and is fully fit this weekend either. So those are things that have changed considerably from a game that took place 80 days ago. Let's not forget, over 80 days ago at this stage. So I think if you weigh up the measurables, Kerry still have the edge in this game, but it will be tight.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, like I said earlier in the show, it is literally, with Mayo, it is impossible to predict anything with any sort of certainty. With the other games, you can sort of say, well, we think if everything goes according to plan, it probably should go this way. But you're absolutely right. We could, I think we're all going for Kerry, obviously, so we're all expecting that's the way it goes. But none of us are going to be shocked if Mayo come through this by a couple of points. Like, that's the one. If Mayo are to win it, it'll be a couple of points. Kerry could end up winning it by a margin. I think that's probably will be my general summation on it. And we will see. We'll update the leaderboard next year. Were we harsh on Cork earlier in the chat? Was it?
No, I was just sad not to see Cork colours in the quick picks. That was it, really.
Yeah, it's no case though.
I can't argue with any of it, but very aesthetically pleasing match to look at would be my takeaway. Nice shade of red and blue.
The High Sparrow has spoken. That's it. Righto. Quick picks for this week in the can. Thanks, Will.
See you, lads.
I absolutely adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
All right, it is gone 9:15. You're watching OTB AM. We're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day, and it's time to get into the papers, for which there is no sting.
There's no sting.
Is that just, yeah. OTBSports.com this morning is a range of stories up there. The OTB brief is up there. There's Keith Wood reflecting on Brian O'Driscoll's impact on New Zealand tour from a few years back as well. So lots of good stuff up there to check out. And across the back pages this morning, really dramatic photographs on the front page of the sports section of the Irish Independent this morning. This is American artistic swimmer Anita Alvarez, who was saved from drowning by her coach after she fainted during a solo free final performance. Really dramatic photographs there of an unusual story. Kerry and Mayo sweating on Clifford and O'Donoghue, or are they? Should be the sub-headline there. Colm Keys writing inside. McIlroy not going out to try and prove anything to anyone. He's flying along on the PGA Tour, and plenty still to say about the Live Tour off the back of it. The Irish Sun for you this morning. The buys from Brazil is a very Irish tinted headline there. Premier race for trio hotting up. This is three-way race for Gabriel Jesus, Richarlison and Rafinha, who are all being eyed up by a trio of the division's big guns. Arsenal and Chelsea basically are in the market for some. Gabriel Jesus drastically improved that Arsenal team.
Possibly. It depends like where he plays. Like they've just signed Eddie Nketiah up to a new longish term contract, so maybe he'll be playing in the number 9 next year, and there's some questions about where Jesus wants to play, like across that front three. So I think he does improve. Arsenal drastically improve, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think if they manage to sign him, if they manage to sign two from Jesus, Tielemans and Rafinha, that will be a very, very good conclusion to the summer window. Yeah,
the Jesus is sort of like, you actually don't really know, is a big part of it, because he hasn't played consistent football for City over a period of time. It's difficult to tell.
Yeah, he's done a very, very good role for Manchester City in terms of his work without the ball, and Pep loved him obviously, and it's just not getting to start now. Like if Haaland wasn't coming into Manchester City, chances are he might stay there and settle for his 20 games a season, 20 starts a season, or whatever it would be, and he'd be happy enough. So that's what's pushed him away. I think he does. I think he's definitely definitely an improvement for Arsenal if he joins.
The Irish Daily Mail this morning, a cut above PGA Tour is the top tour, insists McIlroy after sizzling 62. This feels like a very last week headline. David Gough, it's sad that more GAA people do not feel comfortable about coming out. We'll have an interview with David Gough upcoming for you in a few minutes' time, where we touch on that and plenty more as well. And Frankie Dettori's future in jeopardy, writes Marcus Townend. It's in a couple of the papers this morning. He was basically bollocked out of it by the John Gosden, who's his chief employer, about a meet a couple of weeks back, and the 51-year-old Dettori has since not been booked for any rides, and by all accounts from the quotes that are in the paper this morning from his agent, can't get through to Gosden to see exactly what the latest state of play for him is. So uncertain times for him. Joe Canning's piece in the Irish Times, always a good read, as is the case this morning, about free takers and how they're taken for granted until they start missing, and then everybody notices. That's the Irish Times for you. The Irish Daily Mirror, Jesus Heist, I suppose.
That's it, yeah.
Gunners close in.
Have a morning to you.
It is pretty good, isn't it? Paul Brown inside there. Gunners close in on 50 million gab as Spurs pull out of the chase, and I thought that by coming out others would follow on. They didn't, says the referee, GAA referee David Gough. So that's the story there. You've come back in the studio, Colm.
Wimbledon.
What are you here for?
Wimbledon's draws today.
Yeah.
Today, and the start on Monday, and it's going to be quite exciting because we have Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal seeded 1 and 2, which means that all going well, if they win every match up to the final, they can meet in the final. Unlike in the French Open where they met in the quarter-final, and albeit that was a fantastic match, but it was the Tuesday night start of the second week, and then we were kind of deprived of a brilliant match pretty much right up until the end of that tournament. Well, in this case, we could see the two greatest play in a showdown, and it could be the last. I know we said this at the French Open, we're like, this could be the last time they play each other at a Grand Slam. All going well, they could both play each other at the final. The big problem is they have a Matteo Berrettini shape in their way. Berrettini won Queens for the second year in a row and is really dangerous, and is probably, if anyone at all is going to trouble Djokovic, it's Berrettini. Bear in mind, Nadal hasn't won a Wimbledon since 2010.
It could be the greatest. It feels a bit like our preview of the URC final last weekend. This could be the greatest game of all time. I mean, well, let's wait and see.
Oh no, it could be Nadal Djokovic, even if it's on grass. And Djokovic,
it's not quite the Bulls versus the Stormers, I'll give you that.
Exactly, yeah, but we could be talking about it still. But no, it'll be great. I mean, this is the first Wimbledon without Roger Federer since 1998, so that would be unusual. He got to the quarter-final last year, despite playing very little tennis up to that point, really, overall. But it is a shame. It's a shame to be without him, but it's kind of exciting to have Nadal Djokovic 1 and 2. The reason is that the world number one, Daniil Medvedev, of course, isn't allowed play, with the Russians and Belarusians being banned from Wimbledon. So that includes Arina Sabalenka as one of the top women's players from Belarus. She can't play, and neither can Andrei Rublev, another top Russian player. And then you have world number 2, or seeded number 2, Alexander Zverev, who of course destroyed his ankle in the semi-final of the French Open against Nadal, where it's a guttural scream. That match was so close. Was approaching a tie-break in the second set. The first set was decided in a tie-break. He went over in his ankle, and I thought, oh well, he's just gone over a bit awkwardly. Turns out he tore 3 ligaments in his ankle, so he's going to be out for the foreseeable future. So there's 1 and 2 in the men's gone, which leaves Nadal and Djokovic. But Berrettini for me would be the big threat. Andy Murray's playing too, so if he can get any bit of a run there, it'll be brilliant. Great for the viewership and interest from the casual fans. And then on the women's side, you have the return of Serena Williams, who is playing her first singles match since last year's Wimbledon, when she had to retire injured in the first round. She's been playing doubles action this week at Eastbourne with Ons Jabeur, who we found out this week, Adrian, with Jenny Claffey, former Irish tennis player, current tennis coach. She beat Ons Jabeur 6-love.
There was definitely a bit of that chat where she was like, she was saying that could be me.
Could have been her.
Yeah.
Could have been her. Absolutely.
So we have to listen to more of the, we look forward to...
it's Wimbledon. It's Wimbledon. I don't need to force anyone, really. Down Wimbledon's road. Unless you're not into Wimbledon, it's fair enough, but it's a bit of a landmark event in the sporting calendar. And we're back to full crowds as well for the first time since 2019. There was no Wimbledon in 2020. They were the only Grand Slam to have pandemic-related insurance, so they didn't bother with the tournament that year. And last year it was partial capacity.
I've never heard so much chat about pandemic-related insurance than how Wimbledon patting themselves in the back for being amazing at a bit of foresight.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Well, look, and I look forward to it, Colm. You've absolutely well.
I hope you are, yeah. Will you be watching?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I'll be texting you about the story.
That I have absolutely no doubt about.
The draw, anyway, is this morning, 10 a.m. for those interested.
10 a.m. And your thoughts to follow on Twitter, I'm sure, thereafter.
We'll see. Depends on the draw.
5 to 9 almost on this Friday morning watching OTB AM, and we've a live crappy quiz coming your way as well, by the way. Stay tuned for all of that. And here's what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of today. 1 o'clock, Catherine Switzer on OTB Gold. Live Friday night racing. We'll be looking ahead to the Derby this weekend with Johnny and Co. Team 33 League of Ireland legend is John Caulfield at 4 o'clock today, and Keith Andrews meets Philly McMahon at 6 on OTB Gold, and then Off the Ball live on your radio from 7 as well. Don't forget as well, follow Off the Ball across all of our social channels. If you're watching us on YouTube this morning, good morning to you. Do leave us a comment, but much more importantly than any of that, hit like and subscribe as well, and that will be awesome. And you can also download the OTB Sports app for the very latest in content and analysis from OTB. Next up, we're going to be chatting to the GAA referee David Gough. He spoke to us this week as part of the Super Value Community Includes Everyone campaign. Super Value proud to support David, who's a member of the LGBTIQ plus community, as he continues to break down barriers in Gaelic games. Enjoy.
OTB.
All right, I'm delighted to say that we're joined on the line now by Gaelic football referee David Gough as part of Super Value's Community Includes Everyone campaign. It's now in its 13th year of supporting the GAA All-Ireland Senior Football Championship, and Super Value once again calling on each and every member of the GAA communities across the country to do what they can to make their community more diverse and inclusive. David, how are you doing?
Very well, Adrian. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a million for jumping on, and for the patience in the background as well that nobody else will be aware of. So thanks a million for all of that. How are you? A big game at the weekend, nice media campaign, jumped into the middle of that. Pride is going on. It's mayhem for you at the minute.
Yeah, it's been a pretty hectic week between getting the appointment, training with the Elite Championship referees on Tuesday night, preparing for the weekend, watching clips, meeting umpires. This media campaign, which I'm totally devoted to, and I've put myself fully behind with Super Value, leading into Pride on Saturday, and then of course culminating on Sunday. And if Sunday doesn't go right, well, everything else in the week in the build-up would be blamed as a result of it. So, fingers crossed, we're out there on Sunday evening doing the best we can and get safely across the line.
What's involved in, like you just mentioned there, the Tuesday night session with the elite referees and the watching clips and stuff? What's going on there?
So we would arrive generally in Abbottstown around 5:15. If we need to see the physio beforehand or get strapped up, we do that. We're on the pitch for 5 to 6 to start training at 6 with Dr. Aidan Brady. Warm up a fairly intense set of high intensity interval training sprints that last for about an hour. A cool down. The training is literally hands on head, bent over, gasping for air, kind of putting us through our paces to make sure that we're able to cover the 11.2, I believe, is the average kilometres we run now in a match inside in Croke Park on a championship day. That finishes up. We go in, have a quick meal together, and then it's upstairs for 8 o'clock to be briefed by the referees committee and national match official managers in relation to clips for the previous couple of weekends. So maybe provincial finals and Tailteann Cup matches. Just teasing out little technicalities and rules, how decisions were made, communication, game management, and there's a lot goes into those seminars. But we're a very, very tight-knit bunch of 16 elite referees, and what I really feel that refereeing within Gaelic football certainly is at the best and highest level it's ever been at.
And has it room to go, David? Like, 'cause it's obviously one of these things that always crops up, and rightly or wrongly, there's a decision that goes in a game, no matter how much prep you've done, and suddenly the spotlight comes back on it. Has it, in terms of, I don't think anybody would disagree with that point, that it's probably at the highest it's ever been. Has it room to go?
Oh, there's always room for improvement. Like any player that goes out onto the pitch who knows that they're not going to have the perfect game. Referees are not going to have the perfect game. So they miss scores, wides, they have incomplete passes, foul, missed tackles. We're not going to have the perfect game either. The key for us is to get the big key game decisions right. And to make sure that any sending off, carding, goal scoring or scoring opportunities that they're dealt with properly. We don't want to be getting key game decisions wrong. But there's always room for improvement in every game. But we're slowly getting there. I mean, it is at the finer end of the championship. It is small little details, small things. But we are in a good place at the moment, and I can't think of any high profile, refereeing decision within the football championship over the last couple of weeks that has drawn any undue attention on refereeing during the summer.
Has the black card helped tidy up some of that stuff in terms of the general culture of cynical fouling, or What's your view on that?
Absolutely, it has. Let me be specific about this. It has cleaned up certain types of foul from our game, like the deliberate body collide, the pull downs, and the trips. They're almost eradicated from the game. What we are now seeing, I suppose, is the cuter players and coaches and managers finding areas to still cynically foul that are not covered in the prescriptive language of the rule. So in other words, we know that players are fouling cynically, but that our hands are tied because it does not fit the terminology or language of the rule. Therefore, we cannot give the black card, or potentially in that goal scoring area, the black card and the penalty. So it still needs a tweaking. We need to move away from the language, the very prescriptive language of, there are only 3 cynical fouls in Gaelic games, and they're a trip, a pull down, and a body collide. We know that's not true. So we need to move away from that just to say any type of cynical play that's deemed cynical by the referee, well, that results in a black card, and that results in a black card and a penalty if it's inside a certain area and denies a goal scoring opportunity.
That makes total sense, like absolute sense. Now, like sense and the overall theme of democracy around the GAA and all that sort of stuff maybe don't always go together, but what you're describing there, because we see it all the time where a referee has to give out, everybody knows you're giving out maybe a yellow card, or maybe it's not quite warranted a yellow card, but maybe not, it doesn't exactly fit the rules of a black card. Everybody knows it's the exact same intention, but you just can't deal with it in the way that you might like.
Absolutely. And we're now in a farcical situation in the GAA where if a player is coming into a goal scoring opportunity, you're better off nearly to commit a red card infraction and give away the free if it's outside the penalty area and get your red card rather than getting a black card and giving away a penalty, which is a farcical situation that a more serious foul receives a lesser sanction. And we need to move with the times and just eradicate that prescriptive language and just go back to saying any type of cynical play that the referee deems cynical is a black card, and that's end of story.
Just on the video clips that you mentioned as well, David, so are they just like general clips for the room to say, here's how we're currently looking at this thing, or either within that or separately, are you looking at any video clips from, for example, like Kerry Mayo games? And I know you won't be too specific in this chat, and that's absolutely fine, but are you looking at specific video clips from teams from this season to see what sort of stuff you might be dealing with?
No, absolutely not. So we would always deal with clips that have gone on previously in relation to, we might be looking at a deliberate trip or what we deem to be rough play, or how we're dealing with a body collide and what is a body collide, or how we're dealing with head-high tackles and where is the fine line between a yellow card and a red card. Certainly the GAA or myself, and I don't think they should ever go down this road of preempting matches and doing video analysis of teams before you go out. I firmly believe, like being a teacher in September, that every child comes in with a clean slate into your classroom, that there's no hangover from the year before, that both teams that I'll see on Sunday come out onto the field with a fair and equitable opportunity to win that game without any preconceived ideas being landed in subconsciously for me.
What about like the idea of, are you in contact with the teams at any point during the week, or is that all on the day?
No, I have no contact with the teams at all. I get to see the secretaries of the county boards 40 minutes before the match when they hand me in the team list. That is the only contact I have with teams. Even at the toss of the coin, where you might often see referees talking to players beforehand, I would never speak to a player about how they should play a game. Like it would be completely egotistical of me to turn around and tell them how they should play Gaelic football. They just know it's David Gough. He's going to implement the rules that are set out, and that's it. And I don't like the idea of, setting out your stall beforehand to the teams, because it puts you in an awkward position that if what you have set out actually happens, well, then your hands are tied. And you don't want a captain of a team saying, you said to us at the start of the game that you were going to do X if you saw this, and then you don't follow through on it. So, leave them at it. They're well capable of playing football, and they don't need me to tell them what to do.
The reason I was asking was Dahi Regan on our GAA Late Night Twitter Spaces last Sunday night was just talking about the idea of rugby, where and look at the cross-sport comparisons. I'm sure at times it makes you throw your eyes up to heaven, but that aspect of being able to communicate with the team in advance and say, okay, this week, I'm going to be watching out for this, that, and the other.
like that clarity. I know that rugby players would generally speak about like that clarity being important to them, being able to develop their game plan and stuff like that. But that's not you think not appropriate for GAA.
No, I don't mind cross sport comparisons. We have a lot to learn, and particularly from the like of rugby, we have a huge amount to learn, and the way referees interact with players and managers. But sometimes it's lost in the fact that they're professionals, and that is their job. That is what they are paid to do, and they have exhaustive training and supports to make sure that what they're saying and what they're doing and the language they're using and the respect levels that are there. It's not the same in GAA. We're volunteers. I'm sitting here in my office in my school in Inchicore. Like I work, a good 9 to maybe 8 to 5 every day here in the school. So, I mean, that is my daily job. Refereeing is something I do on a voluntary basis on behalf of the GAA when I have the time. So, I mean, I don't see it just at the moment being in a place where that's possible just yet.
Would it help if referees were professional?
It would help in so far as creating a professional body within the organisation. I don't know whether I'd like to go down the professional route. I don't know. I certainly feel to a certain the GAA does a huge amount to support us as elite panel referees, and we do prepare ourselves as well as we possibly can. Would I like to be a professional referee? It'd be a nice lifestyle, but I'm not sure at this stage it's appropriate for the GAA to be going down that route.
Just as you were chatting there as well, another comment that came to mind was, I think it was Paddy Andrews on the football pod a few months back, and he was talking about, I can't remember, there was obviously must have been some sort of a controversial decision somewhere, but he was talking about, and you mentioned it, that's what triggered it off, that idea of respect between the referee and the player. And he was saying the thing that always worked best for him and was that idea that a foul was given and the referee would say, right, Paddy, that's given because, and everybody would move on. And the thing that used to drive him light was when a free would be given and the referee would be like, listen, back off, free is given, let's carry on. What's your style? Are you there to communicate with them and let them know what's happening? Or
I'm all for communication. I think that comes down to experience and game management. I understand from playing the game that if free was given, I'd like to know why it was given. And look at, you say you give your answer to a player, and sometimes they might not like the answer they get. More often than not, they're not going to agree with it. But there's only one way you can give that answer there and then, because the game needs to move on. So they have to respect, well, this is what he has seen, this is why he's given the free, and just move on with it. There is no way that we're going to overturn a decision having seen it, linked it to a rule, blown a whistle, pointed the direction of the free, told the player what the free is for, and then they're going to start arguing. I mean, I've done 6 things there in the space of a couple of seconds to underpin the fact that I felt it's been a foul. So the mindset change there is just not going to happen.
Where are you at now at this point of the week ahead of the game at the weekend? Do you start to get a bit nervous, or you're nice and relaxed, you're getting your prep done, or where are you at in headspace?
Yeah, I a little bit nervous talking to a couple of the officials that I had, that I will have, should I say, on the line on Sunday. Met them Tuesday night. I'll be meeting the umpires tonight to talk through a couple of clips from the seminar. We'll sit down and have a look, a bit of a discussion. Work out the logistics. Some people don't realise this, that, we have to get to the venue ourselves. It's going to be a full packed house in Croke Park. We have to work around the traffic management plan there. There's no buses or Garda escorts for us into the venue. So we work out our logistics and also our post-match meal, making sure everyone has their gear organised, just small things to make sure the communication is open with any issues during the week. And just, a light run this evening, another light run tomorrow evening, and that's it for me. Nothing major. Obviously with Pride, it's thrown in the extra bit of pressure this week with the couple of media sort of commitments that I have. I will go to the GPA breakfast the morning of Pride and attend the start of the Pride March, but I'm not going to go down through the whole Pride March the day before a game. There's just too much excitement, nervousness, energy there, and I just want to be at home relaxing the day before a big game. So that's where I'm at.
keep the focus on. Yeah, that's fair enough. We had Andy McEntee in studio last week. He was chatting, obviously, your fellow county man, about been gone from the job, and there's been a lot made, obviously, about the abuse that he was getting, and he went into detail about the letters and the nature of them and the personal nature of them, I suppose. And you are on the record yourself previously about stuff probably more on the pitch, almost from the fans, David, that were unhappy with. There was the McManaman shoulder, obviously, in 2016, and you'd spoken about that before as well. What's your experience of that? Is that something as a referee, because obviously you tend to be that lightning rod for fans who are disgruntled for a lot of reasons that might be out of your control, but are you getting any, is that something that you get in your gig?
It's funny, like, and you're talking about Andy there, but I suppose it's not funny. It's just strange, the comparison, because I mean, no matter what decision I make, I'm going to manage to annoy one half the crowd there in the stadium on Sunday. Andy certainly would have had the support of his teammates around him, and a county board and a county to a greater extent. We generally don't have that. We don't have that support, and we're far too often put in the media spotlight for making a mistake we don't intend to make, and then we are lambasted because of it. And like Andy, I would have suffered on various occasions throughout my career social media abuse from the stands, and the letters that come to the house and sometimes to work. And they're unsavoury, they're unwarranted, and they're unwelcome. And when I heard Andy speak about his and the players speak about the type of abuse that was thrown at him, and you kind of wonder to yourself, why would we do it? You know, only one manager is ever going to win the All-Ireland Football Championship in any year. We now have the Tailteann Cup, of course. That's going to be 32 other unsuccessful managers that didn't achieve glory in the championship this year. They're not, you know, I mean, he was 6 years at the helm. He did a great job. And if his term has come to an end, it's come to an end. You don't need the vitriol and the abuse and the level of language that was thrown at him. Because, I mean, we go out, managers and in particular referees, show our love of the game in the most difficult way possible. You know, and I would often say that as a referee. Like, I volunteer my time to referee Gaelic games. I get no thanks for it. If I am on the back page of the Sunday Independent, or Monday, should I say Monday Independent Monday morning, it's not because David Gough has done a good job. And people will say, oh, that fella always wants to be the limelight. He always wants to be in the spotlight. I don't. If I'm in the spotlight because of refereeing, it's because I've done something wrong. Nobody's ever putting me on the back page saying David Gough is brilliant. No, it's David Gough has made a balls out of something. That's the only reason the spotlight is shone on us. So it's a very difficult position to be in, and I have huge empathy for Andy and what he's had to go through.
Yeah, what sending stuff to the school, to your workplace, is another level of bonkers.
Yeah, it's another level of crazy, and you'd have to wonder how angry these people are to sit down, write a letter, find out where you work, post it to your work the next day. So they're getting up the next morning and still, you know, seething over something that perceived slight that I have done. And sometimes you'd have to wonder, what are they watching? I'm in front of maybe 7 different cameras inside in Croke Park, 80,000 people. Do they really think I can afford to be biased against a team? Like, everyone's going to be watching. You know, it's laughable at times when you boil it down to its simplistic terms.
I asked Andy if there was like times where he knows he can tell the letter and he just crunches it up and put it in the bin. I think by and large he was saying that he would read them. What about you?
Yep, always would. They would. They haven't come to the home house in my home in Dublin, but they certainly go to my parents' house, to the GAA club at home, and to work. And I would always read them, but I would wait until my umpires, or at least my father, my brother, were in the house, my uncle. We'd probably, pour a glass of whiskey, sit down and have a laugh over them. And that's the only way to deal with it. They wouldn't be read on my own. They'd be read with everyone. And we make light of them because that's the only thing you can do with them.
Yeah, it's probably the right way to treat it. And sending out that message is no harm either. What, just the last one on that, just because you mentioned obviously about the media spotlight, is there anything that can be done about that? Is there some way to, I don't know if you guys doing interviews post-match is necessarily the right way to go about it either, but is there some way to head that off the past, do you think? Or
Yeah, interviews post-match are just not a thing. There's far too many emotions. You're physically drained, mentally drained. That's just a full week of build-up, and then 70 or 80 minutes of the match beforehand. It's not a good environment to be approaching referees, particularly because we've only had one look at things. Sometimes, more often than not, we're going to get the decision right, but the day will come where he didn't get it right, and now we're going to have to explain ourselves. So it's not a good environment post-match. I do feel maybe a greater awareness and understanding around the rules of the game would help this. An awful lot of analysts, pundits, media personnel actually don't know the rules of the game. So what we're implementing, actually, we might be implementing correctly, and it's an ignorance or a lack of knowledge of the rules that's caused confusion. So that would be a huge thing. I really have felt for years that the GAA needed to come together with RT and take a slot for 10 minutes or 5 minutes in the Sunday game and go through one or two rules every week so that people actually understand what the rule says and how it manifests itself on the field.
Or get ahead of it, like after the game, if there's something controversial with it, like an email to various sports departments saying, listen, just so you know, in case this comes up, like that doesn't need to be coming from you, that can be coming from...
Absolutely, that could come from a match officials manager inside in Croke Park. But again, the danger is always there. At some stage, he's going to have to turn around and send the email saying, well, look, this happened. He actually did get it wrong. And that's a difficult position for Croke Park to put themselves in as well.
Yeah, that's true. Come here, I did want to, given the context of the chat that we're having today, I did want to ask you about Nick McCarthy, and like it felt like another staging post almost last week when he felt the need to make everybody publicly aware of his sexuality. It feels like, certainly I know the point was made on our show last week that it'd be great to be in a position where this doesn't need to happen, but at the same time, an important staging post.
Absolutely. Isn't it fantastic? Now we're at the stage in the last 2 years where we've 2 rugby players coming out as bisexual and gay within Leinster rugby. And I think the environment is there now in the GAA for the same thing to happen for people if they feel they want to express their sexuality. That for the first time ever, we have the GPA walking in Pride on Saturday morning, and we're having allies from the 32 counties walk in Pride, and that's absolutely fantastic to see that happen. They're going to walk with Gael Erica and Erica Ulla, which are the 2 LGBT defined clubs within Gaelic Games, one in Dublin and one in Belfast, and that's all coming together underneath the GAA's March in Pride, and I think that's fantastic, and I hope that news from last week inside in Leinster spurs on a bigger conversation within the GAA and creates the environments where other people within the Gaelic Games community, particularly at inter-county level, feel comfortable to come out within a safe environment and become those role models that young people are calling out for at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, having you front and centre with chats like this, I think helps as well. So listen, thanks Willie for jumping on. All part of Super Values community includes everyone. You can check out that hashtag campaign. David Gough, best of luck at the weekend. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Adrian.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station. Off the ball.
And he also said to ask him about the Hummer golf buggy I saw him driving in Portugal.
Yeah, well, the Hummer golf buggy, it wasn't mine, it was a friend of mine's, and I rented his place, and that was his buggy to get about. So yeah, it was interesting. I was trying to keep my head down at times, but it was a little bit, yeah. Not sure what Roy Keane would have made of it.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong? Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Chris Bond.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me? Is that right? I know, is that right?
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit three of Team Off the Ball up against each other in our no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant has written an ominous letter to Croke Park, warning them of the grave consequences if they fail to open a cheesemonger in the stadium for Tailteann Cup final day. Those Cavantiers just won't be the same without a side of brie. Give it up for the Athlone Bone Adrian, who's your daddy Barry.
Good morning, Owen.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to this?
Which?
The quiz.
Absolutely.
Great. Good to have you. Our next contestant can feel the championship in his bones. As a loyal Mayo fan, this weekend is what it's all about. Those cold, wet, windy February nights when he was at home in Dublin checking Mayo scores on Twitter are the memories he will take to his corporate box this weekend and to his €900 hotel room in the Croke Park Hotel afterwards. This is what the GAA is all about. It is, of course, to be the Ballyhonest, Nathan Nate Dog Murphy. You're welcome.
Are you getting me into your corporate box zone?
No. You're not invited.
Is it breaking news, is it?
Absolutely not. No chance. Have you got one? Have you got a prawn sandwich set up for Sunday?
No, I don't enjoy the prawn sandwich setup. Keep it real with the people.
Nice, yeah. I don't think they do prawn sandwiches on quarter-final weekend.
What's wrong with prawn sandwiches?
Oh, they're delicious.
Roy Keane just decided they were
prawn
posh.
Sandwich is nice.
On some brown bread, like, you know, you wouldn't be eating them in between two slices of white Brennan sliced pan, like. But
yeah, you wouldn't get them in a deli.
And a bit of mayo.
What's that about mayo?
Just on high alert at the moment. And our final contestant today is the Greg Norman of OTB Trivia. After an audacious attempt to bring a lucrative quiz to Thursday nights on the radio, Phil the Power Regan is said to have referred to this man's backers as scary MFers. Give it up for APM angry producer Mick.
Hi, Owen.
You're welcome back.
You know, at some point I had to kind of like look for a rival quiz because I just wasn't being invited here, and it's not that I'm not being invited that hurts. It's the fact that I listen in when I'm not invited and I hear such people as Arthur O'Dea being treated as this kind of like second coming of Tiger Woods, if you want to keep the golf analogy going, or like Phil Egan being the standard bearer. It's like Nicholas versus Woods, whatever. And him sits somebody quietly at home listening, crying into his cornflakes at the idea of not even being remembered as the fact that I'm undefeated in this quiz. More wins than Arthur O'Dea. And I don't know.
PhD.
Yeah.
How many PhDs do you have?
Look, PhDs don't win you crappy quizzes. So.
The saddest thing about all that is Nathan thought you were talking about him right up to the end there, Mick.
There's been a lot of, I think there's been a lot of unsettled moods going around OTB Towers recently because of the nice things that have just been said about Arthur O'Dea and John Duggan.
I have no problem with Arthur. I'll beat Arthur in the quiz any day.
Tailteann Cup of quizzes, was it not?
I think Nathan and Mick both quite quite put out by this.
It's his call. Look, Arthur has done well for himself. He's coming through the ranks. He's doing a good job. He's possibly even a pretender. But until he beats someone who's never been beaten in a quiz since 2016, then I think he has questions to answer.
As in real life, I'd also happily take a win in the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Today could be that day. And as ever, the format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions and a range of themes. Then on to the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast a crappy quiz on OTBSports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, a thumbs up would be great. You can send any questions you have then via postcard to Crappy Quiz Quizmaster, Off the Ball Towers, Marconi House, Diggs Lane, Dublin 2. Round 1 is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Adrian, it's 10 years ago this week since Ireland got creamed 60-0 by the All Blacks. In which city did that game take place?
You've asked this question before and I've got the answer wrong.
We never recycle questions on the quiz.
Oh, yeah. I think I need to go for Waikato.
It's not Waikato.
It's Dunedin.
It's not Dunedin.
Auckland, third test.
It's not Auckland.
Wellington.
It's not Wellington.
Christchurch.
It's not Christchurch.
There's nowhere left.
Otago. No. Otago. No, hang on.
Hamilton.
So you don't score there, Adrian. Nathan, a win this weekend would see the Clare footballers qualify for the All-Ireland football semi-finals since the last time they won the Munster Championship. What year was that?
That's so easy.
1992.
Really famous year, like.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's definitely
Got to know the answers. Man.
Have a guess. Adrian's one is like, have a guess of, here, there's 9 cities in New
renowned
Zealand,
rugby man. Renowned rugby man who once went to the Southern
remembers where
Hemisphere.
games
Likes to
are.
talk about it every week.
And the fact that it
Come
was,
on.
listen, the fact that it was also asked before, I can't stand too much in judgment here.
Question 1 from Mick. The closest Ireland have come to qualifying for a major tournament in women's football was in 2008 when they lost the playoff for the Euros against which team?
Slovakia.
It is not Slovakia. Anyone?
Switzerland.
Iceland. So Nathan, do you want
I
to
had the colours right. I kind of.
You did, yeah. That's
good logic there, Mick.
Vague memory.
Yeah.
Round 2 is the pass the parcel of doom round with a twist round.
Can I just say the difference in the standard of Nathan's question and my question there is.
Well, both of our questions.
Well, you're from Clare. You're from Clare.
But sure, everyone knows they won it in 92. It's the only.
No, they don't.
They do. You knew. Says everything.
Wow. Wowee.
Wow.
Here we go.
It is 9:24. People are very much in their breakfast mood still. We're bringing back the pass the parcel of doom round with a twist round. This is Cullum's round with years and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm going to give you a year. All you got to do is name the winners and runners up of the competitions that are attached to the year that I give you. So Adrian, you're first up. Your year is 2021. Can you name the winners and runners up of the Six Nations, the Leinster Hurling Championship, and women's lightweight boxing at the Olympic Games?
2021. So you want the winners of each of those?
And the runners up.
Of all 3 categories?
All 3.
Own. What's
6 points on the go here, is there?
Oh, is there? Okay.
What?
6 points.
France, Six Nations.
And who's runner up? I need a pair of answers for each one, please. So
No, but you need 6 points, so 1 point per correct answer, of course.
No, it's 1 point for winner.
Listen,
point for runner
I know that when you're saying it to Zealand that you're making this up as you go along, but there has to be a point per correct answer, surely. Oh, who was it? We had a chance, and a very outside chance of winning that on the last weekend. So I'll go with ourselves.
No, you're wrong. Wales won it. You don't remember Wales winning the Six Nations last year after we slagged them off at the start of the Six Nations? They went on.
Yeah.
And France came second.
Sure, the most ridiculous Six Nations of all time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Leinster Hurling, winners, runners up, please.
The winners were Kilkenny.
Yeah, and your runner up
was it the obvious again last year? Or did they meet before that? Listen, I really don't know, so I'm going to go with Wexford.
No, but you got
Can I
Kilkenny right.
Just to give Adrian a bit more time to think about the last one, which he's never going to get. This is the most ridiculous round we've had so far. This was a great round. The pass the parcel of doom was unanimously welcomed.
Unfortunately, Nathan,
we don't. This is a new take on that.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
He's arguing with you that we don't have it, even though you just said we did. And
We
you
do.
have the quiz written in front of you.
Round 3 is the pass the parcel of doom round. This is the pass the parcel of doom round with a twist round.
For God's sake. Come on.
Very different things. Lightweight boxing, women's boxing, Tokyo 2021, winner, runner up, please.
Come on.
Kelly Harrington and Kelly Harrington.
Well, Kelly Harrington's correct. So you get 2 points out
Sophia
of that.
Achigava.
No, so it wasn't Achigava. No, you're getting your games mixed up there potentially. Beatrice Ferreira was who she beat. 2 goals. Okay, Nathan, your year is 1991. Can you name the winners and runners up of the Old First Division, the All Ireland Hurling Championship, and the Masters, please?
Oh my God.
What were the 3?
First Division, Hurling, Masters.
All Ireland Hurling.
All Ireland Hurling. Nathan, do you want to start with the First Division, or do you want to start?
The runner up in the Masters in 1991.
You can take us through positions 10 to 7 to begin with, and then.
What are you writing down?
What are you looking up?
I'm writing down the 3 things I have to come up with. 1991 First Division.
Yeah.
1990. Arsenal.
Who came second?
1991. Aston Villa.
No, it was Liverpool. Hurling All-Ireland
I didn't know
champions and
that.
runners-up, 1991.
Jesus, Premier League commentator. Didn't know that.
Well, it's pre-Premier League.
Football was only invented in
Pre-Premier League.
1992.
That's true.
Pre-Premier League.
The Masters one is so hard. The runner-up in the Masters in 1991.
Golf
here.
Don Juggan would be there all day long though.
He would though, yeah.
Hurling 1991. I'm going to go Tipperary.
Correct. And who lost the final? Who lost the final?
Absolutely ridiculous.
Tipperary beat Kilkenny.
Here.
If you say Kilkenny for one of those answers,
You're three from four so far. Masters now, Nathan.
This is his specialist round, is it?
John Duggan will be twirling in his office chair if you get this wrong.
I can't get this.
Ian Woosnam?
Correct.
Ah, good shout.
And who came second?
Good.
That's going to be a total guess either way.
As have all your answers so far.
No, that.
I got Woosnam.
Come on. 5,
Arsenal.
4, 3, 2.
Nick Faldo.
No, it was Olathibal in 1991 who came second to Ian Woosnam, but a good showing. You got, what was it, 4 there, so you're at 5 points. Mick, your year is 1998. Can you name the winners and runners-up of the World Cup Golden Boot, the Champions League, and the Super Bowl?
So is this is like February 98,
Yeah.
as in the 97 season?
The thing that took place in 1998, yeah.
So can I start with the Super Bowl?
You can, of course.
Denver beat Green Bay.
Correct.
The Champions League was Real Madrid beat Juventus.
Correct.
And the World Cup Golden Boot was won by... Suker.
Oh, he got it. Who came second?
Ronaldo.
No. Almost perfect. There was a tie for second place between Batistuta and Christian Vieri in the 1998 World Cup. Well done.
That's fair enough.
Mick got 5 there, so you're 5-all with Nathan at the moment. Adrian in third place.
Just to be clear, I got something that happened 31 years ago. Adrian got one that happened last year.
I find the last year harder.
Here, introduce the next round.
I would agree with that, Mick. Yeah.
Round 3 is the Pass the Parcel of Doom round. In this round, all you got to do is give me the name of that's on a list of names. I have, and then the Parcel of Doom passes on to the next contestant.
lost a
who then also
contestant.
has to give me a name. Nathan has disappeared from his seat, but he will be back.
I'd carry on if
You'll
he's
keep
not there.
moving
He's
through
not
a
there,
list until one of you gives me an incorrect
Get knocked
answer.
out,
It's
that's
like
it.
the ball being thrown in that Cork game.
Absent equals an incorrect answer.
Question 3, Adrian, can you kick us off here? Can you name someone who managed in this year's Tailteann Cup?
I can. John Mahan.
John Mahan is correct. It goes to Nathan next.
What's the question?
No, you're not there. You didn't hear it. You didn't hear it. No.
Can you name someone who managed in this year's Tailteann Cup?
How many answers have we had?
1.
Andy Moran.
Correct.
Mickey Graham.
Mickey Graham is correct.
Tony McEntee.
Yeah.
Ooh, good answer. Ooh.
No, that's wrong.
Enda McGinley.
Correct.
Oh, good shout.
They get hard
Um,
in a couple of names' time, I think.
I can't think of any counties.
Okay, we'll have to move on. Come on, Owen, shift us on here. Come on.
I think I'm gone.
You're gone?
Yeah.
You're out?
Yeah.
Mick is gone.
Jack Cooney.
Jack Cooney is correct. Nathan?
Mickey Hart.
No.
No, Adrian gets a point. Closes the gap.
Billy Sheahan.
Billy Sheahan was another one.
Billy Sheahan.
Niall Carew, Alan Costello and Gary Duffy were joint managing Wicklow. Kieran Donnelly of Fermanagh, Aoife Fitzgerald of Waterford, Michael Maher of London, James McCartan of Down, Johnny McGeaney of New York, Billy O'Loughlin of Wicklow, David Power of Tip, Shane Roche of Wexford and Billy Sheahan, as you said, of Laois. Nathan, you're kicking us off in this one.
Tough round.
Can you name a player who is in the top 15 most expensive football signings, top 20 football signings of all time, according to Transfermarkt?
Is this like a one-off signing or accumulated?
One-off. So there are a couple of repeat. There's only 17 options in the top 20.
Paul Pogba.
Correct.
I'm completely blank here. Ronaldo.
Cristiano. He appeared twice, yeah.
Bale.
Bale is correct.
Coutinho.
Yeah.
Jack Grealish.
Jack Grealish is correct.
Wow. Haaland.
Is not correct.
Oh, crap.
How much was Haaland?
60. I mean, these clearly aren't adding on fees onto Transfermarkt, but I can only go with what's in front of me.
I just needed to know what the cutoff was there.
You would have expected him to be there, to be fair.
João Felix.
Yeah, João Felix is correct.
Nunes.
Nunes is not there.
Is he not?
No, Nathan wins the point.
What price was he? 80 million?
He's like number 24 or something on the list, just below it. So the ones who didn't get were De Jong, De Ligt, Ousmane Dembele, Griezmann, Hazard, Higuain, Lukaku was there twice, Maguire, Mbappe, Neymar is there twice, and Jadon Sancho. Mick, you can kick us off for this one.
Okay.
Can you name a city that hosted a game at the 2002 World Cup?
Should we say Tokyo?
Out straight away.
Whoa!
What?
Oh, one of the greatest answers of all time. Oh, wow.
Oh, ridiculous. How did they
I
know
love
that
the way,
many
by the
games?
way, you were just like, well, I just tapped that one in anyway.
I just said I don't know, so I haven't had the chance to, when you're up first you have the chance to think about the question.
Wow.
Adrian, you're next up.
Seoul.
Seoul is correct.
Ooh, some music.
Nathan?
Ibaraki.
Ibaraki, yeah.
Are you...
Ibaraki isn't on my list here.
Oh, I got back.
Oh.
Ibaraki did host the game. I mean, that's where Robbie Keane scored.
Yeah.
I'm sure Tokyo must have hosted the game. For God's sake, like, are you sure your list is right?
It is right, yeah. Continue on.
Well, no, let's continue nothing until we establish the facts here.
No, I mean, I saw the map of various things just this morning.
Why were there no games in Tokyo? Did you see any interesting trivia surrounding that?
No, I didn't. I mean, Ibaraki is where Robbie Keane scored his goal.
It is.
And it isn't on the list of host cities. I'm not
sure Ibaraki's a city and not like
like that.
You're saying it's like
is it in Tokyo?
Yes, you're dead right. Ibaraki is a prefecture.
Oh, he's out!
He is out.
Champion! Yeah.
What the hell's a prefecture?
It's like a problem.
That's not a city.
Yeah,
That's not a city.
Sure, how many cities are there then?
Tough shit, Paddy.
Yeah, it's
How many cities?
Kashima.
Tell me right now how many cities there are.
I have 20. By the way, sorry, a second. My points are in the bag,
all 20
right?
of them are cities. You're sure all 20 of them are cities and not prefectures?
Yeah. He's confident in information. You don't need to be second guessing him. Here,
Here.
before I say anything, my points are in the bag.
I am.
No.
Yes.
It's not here.
Ibaraki.
It's not a city. It's not an answer.
Fun. My points are in the bag.
Oh,
Your
so when
points are in
Robbie
the
Keane
bag.
scores goal.
Put them in the
Where
bag.
did Robbie Keane score his goal?
It was in a different city.
It was in it. It was not the city of. Ibaraki is a prefecture. Kashima is a city located in Ibaraki prefecture.
It's like you asking, what city is the Stade de France in? And you say Saint-Denis.
That's right.
Then you have Ibaraki Stadium, which is in Kashima.
It wouldn't be the answer to what city it's
Is
in.
Incheon one of the ansers?
It was absolutely. Busan, Daegu, Daejeon, Gwangju,
He has no
Incheon,
idea whether these are cities or prefectures.
Jeonju, Kashima, Kobe, Miyagi, Niigata,
These places are in
Oita,
South Korea.
Quizmasters.
Osaka,
word is
Saitama, Sapporo, Seogwipo, Shizuoka,
Jesus.
Suwon, Ulsan, and Yokohama.
God, suddenly
I feel like I've just turned on the TV in the middle of the night.
Adrian has closed the gap. No, I
We're in
have.
Japan for the last World Cup. You don't even know what's a city, what's a prefecture.
I do. And
Prefect.
I managed to get to the correct eventuality there in the end. Nathan, you were wrong. I apologise. Adrian, you picked up 2 points there.
History is wrong.
You've got to notice
History is wrong.
and you've got to notice surprise to your voice there. But I mean, you should be an impartial adjudicator. But I accept accept that.
You're on 4 points, Mick is on 5 points, Nathan's on 6 points. I find that the key here is just to pretend that you know what you're talking about and then just power around. So I'm 100% sure that everything there was totally above board.
Great.
Round 4 is the fun free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. The second closest gets 1 point. Again, I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of goals the Ireland women's national team scored against Georgia in their last meeting, plus the number of Ireland's men's FIFA world ranking position after the latest update.
You always do this, and nobody knows.
Plus the number of times Chris Froome has won the Tour de France. Plus the number of times a county has completed a double in GAA by winning both the hurling and football All-Irelands in the same year. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads.
Jeez, that is hard. There's a couple of those that are just haymakers, aren't there? Ireland's men's team, you said?
Ireland's men's
team. Are you sure you're not looking for the women's team? Probably a better question if you want to go for that.
What's the answer to that?
27.
Who did we play? We won a game, didn't we? It's got to be a positive. It's got to be a positive.
God.
What have we got?
Tough.
Nick?
61.
61?
62.
62. Nathan?
50.
50. The answer is 66.
Yes!
Oh
Get
my God,
him!
you're kidding me.
End it now.
This surely is the Tailteann
Blow it
Cup.
up, Bref. Blow it up.
In an extraordinary twist, we're all on 6 points. The number of goals the Ireland women's national team scored against Georgia was 11. Ireland are ranked 47th in the world.
44.
It's great. I thought we were.
Did we drop one? We were 46, were we?
Chris Froome has won
Scotland. We should have been flying up.
Chris Froome has won the Tour de France 4 times.
Yeah, got that.
And
Double got his arse right. Double must have been done loads of times, was it?
Double 4 times. Cork 1990 and 1890, Tip 1900 and 1895, and that brings your total to 66. We tossed a coin beforehand, and Adrian gets to go first. Between Nathan and Mick, and Mick gets to go second.
Three-way coin.
Three-way coin. Say it with confidence and keep going.
Yeah, Adrian won the coin toss.
Why can't we do a live tossing?
Mick came second in the coin toss, and Nathan came third in the coin toss. So.
We
move on to the final.
Picked it landing sideways.
Our winner tonight will be decided in the no team in particular ridiculously easy rapid fire round. I mean, after all the talk about OPHD and Don Juggan earlier, it would be quite something if Adrian beat them.
I think that's a very fair point, Don, and I'm certainly...
Greg, who pointed out on our YouTube comments a few weeks ago that, I don't bring the brains, I just bring the comedy, which, to be fair, as I've said before, is very generous of him on all accounts. I mean, I'm here for you. This is going to get done now.
Yeah.
You're not even leading.
I am in a tie for the lead, absolutely.
Our winner tonight will be decided in the no team in particular ridiculous easy rapid fire round. I do think Nathan was a bit screwed over in the Ibaraki, but we'll come back to that maybe some other time.
He was not. Oh, and don't be opening that door for
previous
Jesus.
I've been googling on the side here for quite some time.
Don't worry about it.
There'll be 40 seconds to answer the same set of questions. We're going to start with the person with the highest number of points, which is Adrian, then onto the person with the second number of points, which is Mick, and then onto the person
we
in
all
last,
the same
which is
amount of
Nathan.
points, but you've just made up that Adrian's getting it.
Adrian.
I hear you, Nathan.
Are you ready?
I have never been more ready.
Okay, your 40 seconds starts now. Megan Campbell plays for what club?
Liverpool.
Correct. Who was the women's champion at Wimbledon?
Vanareva.
No, Ash Barty. What nationality is Darwin Núñez, Mick?
Uruguayan.
Correct. Name either of the golfers who came second at the US Open last week.
Scheffler.
Correct. Name Lewis Hamilton's teammate.
Russell.
Correct. Name the Burnley manager.
Company.
Correct. Goalkeeper Nick Pope signed for which club this
Newcastle.
week? Correct. Conor Nash plays for what AFL club?
Essendon.
No, Hawthorn. What club did Southampton sign Sadio Mane from in 2014, Nathan?
Salzburg.
Correct. Daniel Whiffen represents Ireland in which sport?
Sorry, what a load of bollocks. So we all end up in the same amount of points.
Music,
but because you've done some imaginary
music.
coin toss, this does not count as a loss for me at all.
Oh, it does.
I didn't
4
get
in
an
a row.
opportunity. I didn't get an
4
opportunity.
in a row.
And Ibaraki was clearly correct, so I should have been going first. Got
La,
those
la,
shitty
la,
questions.
la.
that
Prefecture.
Adrian
It's a
Michael, yeah?
prefecture. It's like a county. It's
care
an
less.
area. It's not a
Couldn't care
city.
less.
You can't just make it up.
You can't decide a quiz on an imaginary coin toss.
It's either a city
which
or
is
it's
what
not.
you've just done. What happened
Where's
to
your grace?
Tell us how many caps how many caps somebody had. No, this is
every time I win this quiz, Owen, all I get is moaning from other people.
But you didn't win it.
A Japanese prefecture bordering the Pacific Ocean, northwest of Tokyo.
Look, you win games all kinds of ways. I wasn't at my best today, and I still pulled it out.
Yeah, I think
we all ended up with 6 points. Right?
I love that he's shouting, pipe down.
We all ended up with 6 points, and then an imaginary coin toss. You need to find a way of doing a proper coin toss.
I did well in the rapid fire round.
I think that was a really good quiz, guys. Thanks for taking part.
Great quiz on, yeah.
Congratulations.
Undefeated.
Undefeated. OTB AM has been brought to you live each morning this week by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We are back on Monday morning.
Is he gone? Is he threw the headphones down? He's like, watch your man's. He's gone. Watch your man's Toto Wolf. Look at him. God.
Just look at the face on Nathan. Yeah. I mean, absolutely devastated. Jer's back on Monday morning, by the way. We'll have the reaction to the All-Ireland football quarter-finals. We look ahead to Ireland against Georgia on Monday night, and the Gillette Labs performance rankings are coming your way as well. Right now, we're leaving you with Keith Wood on last night's Off the Ball. Have a good weekend. Enjoy.
Keith Wood is with us. Evening, Keith.
Good evening, Nathan. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's a couple of weeks since we've had you on, and we never had a chance to pay tribute to Phil Bennett, who passed away at the age of 73. Obviously a very different era, but I know you're both in the World Rugby Hall of Fame, and I'm so sure someone you grew up watching and might have spent a bit of time working with as well through the years.
We got into the Hall of Fame together, which is maybe a factor of me being older than I look, or maybe looking actually my actual age. But I remember going on a bus, myself and my wife. We were last onto the bus that were going to those awards, and you had all those greats from the 70s on it, and you just you felt you were on the wrong bus, and you felt you're almost like a schoolboy with these guys that were there, with Gareth Edwards and Benny on at the back. I mean, he was. For people of my vintage, I think we would have grown up knowing and loving the 101 great tries, and seeing that he featured in so many of them. And his sidestep was magic. And of course, it goes back to the 1973 game. But none of that actually does justice to him as a guy. He was just a total gent. Lovely guy, had time for everybody, would introduce himself to you when you'd meet him, as if you wouldn't know who he was. And look, it's a very sad passing. And he's a guy that graced the fields. Didn't always get his own way, actually. Was in the team for Wales for a while, which is kind of extraordinary to think when he was as gifted as he was.
We see so much rugby now. We see absolutely every game. It's interesting you mentioned the 101 great tries, because for players of that era, we didn't see a huge amount of rugby, so you didn't get to see every magic moment. So those tapes and being able to sit down meant that somebody like Phil Bennett had a massive role in young people's lives, and young rugby players watching him and thinking, actually, this is what this game is all about.
Well, I think so. And look, if people haven't had a chance to see it, the whole thing is on YouTube. If you look at the 1973 Babas game against the All Blacks, and apart from the crazy high tackles and clothesline tackles, and a couple of dubious forward passes, which I think will go in terms of entertainment, it's his place that starts the excitement of that game, with the most outrageous sidestep. It's a feint, looking one way, going the other, but he almost goes backwards. He sidesteps so much and then does it again. And of course it is. That was 1973, so I can't remember that. I was born in 72. But it was one of those games that you would, anytime something would come up, it showed half of that game, because that was like a highlights reel in itself. So it's worth watching on YouTube for listeners to get a chance just to see. It's very different, quite crazy. Actually, the haka at the start of that is amazing. Looks like a group of Morris dancers, but it is a definite throwback to a different time. But some of the play that was in that game was incredible, and he was instrumental in so much of it.
So this never-ending rugby season rolls on, and I was on Instagram looking at the Irish players, showing the beautiful scenery in New Zealand. They were landing over the past 24 hours, and they're pretty much straight into it against the Maoris, and then into a 3-test series against the All Blacks. And it feels as though the Irish players, an awful lot of them, are travelling on that tour in a sort of different mindset and maybe different confidence level than where they would have been 5 or 6 weeks ago, or where they even left the Six Nations Championship. From your experience of end of season tours, how relevant is that club form, that provincial form, and the maybe hangover, the disappointment that has gone on in the weeks before, how much does that cross into when you get on the plane for an Ireland tour?
It does cross in, but that's the key role of the management and the senior players and the captain, is to try and make certain that that is scratched off, that is a knock to the confidence and collective confidence of a lot of the players in the squad. It's for all our provinces, they ended in failure, losing their last game, so that's one of those elements. But that was a long season, and this seems to be the start for the World Cup next year. It seems to be part of the conversation that's happening, that this is what this is. So for that alone, you get energised, even though you're tired. But they've had a few weeks off, or a couple of weeks off. A lot of the guys, yeah.
Is that a hard sell for Andy Farrell? Is that a hard sell for this is the start of a World Cup cycle when these guys are coming off the end of what's felt like an endless season?
I don't think so. I think it's the carrot of a World Cup, and the fact that Ireland have never progressed past a quarter-final and we're in a really horrible side of the draw, is something I think that for a lot of the players who are in the end of their playing time, the next 18 months will be the end, I think, of maybe 6, 7 or 8 of the players. If that happens, they want to be able to try and go out on a high and do something that all the previous generations haven't done. And so I don't know that it's a fatigue thing that sets in. There's an excitement when you go into camp. There's an excitement when you go on tour. When you go to New Zealand, it's tough. The crowd is difficult. The fans are difficult. They have a high expectation of skill level and entertainment. And if that isn't shown, they're quite comfortable to show their displeasure. So it's a really tough place to go. You could end up having 4 different seasons down there, like you'd have up here sometimes in the winter, but it could be snowing down there in some of the matches. It could be sunny for some of the matches. You're trying to get your head around the idea of touring, and it's been quite a while since there's been midweek matches in the tour. I love the fact that there are. It is a bit of a throwback, but it's also a great place for players, uncapped players, or guys without a huge number of caps, to get an understanding of wearing a green jersey on foreign soil. It's a tough thing to do, and it's a great thing to do.
Has your view of where Ireland are and their chances of winning in New Zealand, have they changed by the way the provinces finished the season? Have they changed since the end of the Six Nations?
No, and not because I'm kind of looking at it blindly, but I think Ireland were in a good space during the Six Nations. I think they made enough of mistakes that you would expect Andy Farrell and co to work on that and to try and bring that to a next level. I think some of the losses that were shown at the end of the season were ones that when we're talking Leinster in particular, I thought Leinster didn't play well in either of those matches that they got knocked out in. And I thought their performance during the year was an awful lot better. And people can talk about the reasons, that the lack of quality in some of the competition and some of the standard, whatever. But for me, I just didn't think that they got their head into the game properly. And yes, they were bullied at different times in the forwards, but they still have the skills to be able to deal with that. I thought they actually went into their shell, and that's just not. We're not used to that so much. I know we've seen it a couple of times in the last few years, but we thought that was going to be gone this year. That's the biggest lesson, I think, for Ireland to garner out of Leinster's demise at the end of the season, is that you still have to go and play. You still have to take the risks. You do have to take the ball to the line. There's certain things you need to mix up, and there's a risk that's involved in an awful lot of that. But play rugby. That's the way the game has gone for a huge amount. There are very few teams that play of the really big, heavy-hitting standard. France are one of them. South African teams are others. How do you deal with that at international level? I still believe you need to be able to outthink them. I don't know that you can deal with them exactly on a pound per pound basis. And I think that's one of the elements that you just have to be smarter than the opposition, and because you're going to be under a huge amount of pressure. But I don't know that you can play percentages. And I felt Leinster probably played percentages. think they got some of their selection wrong. And they're lessons that the national team can learn from.
When you look at the squad that's heading over, then there's 5 on-cap players, but there's lots of other players in that squad who haven't reached double figures in terms of caps. And you mentioned the opportunity of a tour to New Zealand, and for the coaching staff to learn about those guys, but also for those players to understand what it's like at the very toughest level. Who are the 2-3 players that you look at for this tour that you feel it's a real opportunity to get themselves into a starting 15?
Yeah, look, there's a few actually, and there's a few of look, I think Munster have limped for a lot of the season, and it's been very, very frustrating as a Munsterman to watch it. And I found that part hard. I want to see whether some of the Munster players come out of their shell. I want to see whether Joey is able to reignite his undoubted promise, but he hasn't done very well. And I did mention about 6 or 7 months ago that the manner in which Munster were playing, I think, was affecting their selection for the Irish team and was putting them under huge pressure. And I still think that's the case. Once you go on a tour, it's an opportunity to wipe the slate clean. So I'd like to see whether some of the Munster guys can get a run, can do different things, can play differently. I'd like to see whether Craig Casey gets a run as well. He gets criticised a lot, and he's a young guy coming on the scene. I liked it when he came on the scene first, when he played the ball as he saw it, and I think that has almost been coached out of him in Munster, and that's an issue. So that needs to be coached back into him and let him go and play, because he has a talent and we want to be able to see it. Every time I see him slow the game down, I know that this is coaching directive, and I don't like it. I'd like to see him play naturally. But for us, I think for anybody that has an interest in rugby, we're looking at what can happen in and around Johnny, and whether he continues to play, which he wants to play. He's still playing very well. We do know that under huge pressure, he has to take the ball to the line a bit more. Who are the other players that are going to take that jersey away from him? And a lot of the time, you kind of almost feel as if, oh my God, would you just make a decision on who it is that's going to be there? But none of the decisions seem to pass muster. So I'd like to see Harry Byrne in an opportunity to go and play, and I would like to see it. And I'd like to see Kieran Frawley get a chance, because people talk about him as a 10, but he rarely gets the chance to play there. But we need someone to control the game. And our issue has been at different times that when we're not under pressure, and if Johnny is on the field, we control the game very well. And actually, even under pressure, when Johnny's on the field, we control the game very well. And he has proven to be more resilient in the last 12 months than he was in the previous ones. I think he's managing his game time properly, or they're managing his game time. But I still think we need to see more out of our outside backs, and we need more people to step in instead. And at times that worked really well during the season, but it doesn't seem to be quite as seamless when we go to the next in line. But someone has to grab the jersey. That's what the tour is great for, because it matters, but kind of matters in a different way. Like if you lose one match in the Six Nations, you're fighting a rearguard action to have an outside chance of maybe winning the championship. Ireland get an opportunity to play in New Zealand. They play the Maoris, which would be incredibly tough, physical and fast games, very skillful games. The ones that matter are the tests. Are we able to sneak a test win? Are we good enough to do that on New Zealand soil? I don't know if we are, but I know that there's a load of guys down there who'd like to be the first guys to do it.
Barring injury, Keith, it still does feel hard to envisage a situation where somebody does grab that jersey off Sexton over the next 15 months ahead of a World Cup. Like, how do they do that? How does Harry Byrne go about that process of putting himself in the mix to be a starting 10 at a World Cup in 15 months' time? Is it starting a game in New Zealand, playing exceptionally well, and coming back and then forcing Leo Cullen's hand? Like, how do you actually see that working out for Harry Byrne to be in a position to put real pressure on Sexton?
Yeah, it's Harry Byrne and Joey Carberry and maybe Kieran Frawley. And I think an awful lot depends on how they turn up in the first week, the first 10 days. It also depends on what happens with injury. But I don't expect Johnny to start all three of them. In fact, I think that would be the wrong thing for the team to do. And but I'm looking at it and saying, well, we're only guessing from here because Joey has been in very patchy form. Harry has been in and out of games. He's had no concerted period of time where he's held on to the 10 jersey and delivered for it, and Frawley hasn't played there at all. So look, we had this conversation 4 years ago, Nathan, you and I had this conversation 4 years ago with a high level of frustration with the fact that we thought Johnny was nearly past it then. I think he had a dip post the World Cup. I think he's come back and played incredibly well. He had a good few injuries. He seems to be fairly secure. But we still have a dearth behind him. And so those are decisions that have to be made by Farrell now as to prepare for it. And it's funny, I keep looking at different comparisons and I know he's young, but I looked at Marcus Smith in Harlequins this year, and actually their key players, which would be Don Brandt, Kerr, Smith, Esterhuizen in the centre, they play every game. They nearly play 80 minutes of every game. It isn't as if they're chopped and changed or not. They're the main guys to play the game out. And we need to be able to get ourselves into the idea that we don't have to take players off in a period of time. And we need to be able to give players an opportunity to go and play for 80 minutes and see what it's like.
Yeah, it does feel very similar to a conversation we were having 4 years ago, and maybe a conversation we'll be having in a year's time. I want to play this, Keith, a nice little memory from a trip to New Zealand.
The All Blacks losing out in their own line now. Here's Keith Wood showing some versatility. Now let's have a look at this. Oh, how's that? How many hookers around the world of international rugby can do that?
Well, commonly referred to by a lot of journalists as the world's #1 hooker.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.